Hey, are you ever going to start this podcast you've been talking about for like forever?
Do you think that anyone will actually want to listen to something like this?
What is your plan for an introduction?
Are you sure you want to talk about these topics? People usually disagree.
3 hours? Are you crazy?
Do you think you're some kind of expert or something?
Are you planning to have an intro song?
What if a bunch of people get really mad and hate you over this?
Do you even know how to make a podcast?
Are you just doing this because you like to argue with people?
Don't let this be just one more thing that you talk about doing, but never actually do.
Wouldn't it be better to do just one episode for each topic?
Stop trying to change people's opinions. Just live your own life.
Dude, people are never going to agree. Just let it go.
Is this going to be a long intro? Because if it is, I'm bored already.
Welcome to the 10th episode of the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast, our first milestone. We've been through a lot together, you and I. Episode 10. After listening to this episode, assuming that you have listened to the 9 before it as well, you have listened to over 30 hours of me talking to other people. For better or worse, that's quite an accomplishment. Give yourself one of those back pat things. Seriously though, if you have been listening, then I am truly thankful. I'm still having a lot of fun in these discussions, and I hope that you are still enjoying them. Today my guest is a special one. Not that all my guests haven't been special, but this guy holds a bit of a higher ranking than the rest when it comes to specialness. I love everyone, but I do have 5 favorite people on this planet, and this guest just happens to be one of those 5. He loves to discuss and has many, many strong opinions, and to be honest, I have no clue where he gets that from. I am, of course, referring to my son, Aidan, the one who would inherit my estate in the case of my death if we were still living in Bible times. We had a great conversation that I enjoyed very much. Makes me think about acorns and apples falling not very far from a tree or something. You will also notice that I put on my just getting over a cold sexy voice for this episode, just for your listening pleasure. In this episode, we go down many rabbit trails. Among them are hyperpop, suburban, chicken nuggets singing, Skillet, 5-Iron Frenzy, Deconstruction, swearing and music, Demi Lovato, NF, putting on a happy face, Aidan Ryan music, Freeverse, Kid the Band, And Then There Were None, Sungazer, EKOH, Glasslands, Attalus, MacDonald, Transphobia, Controlling Things from a Chip in Your Brain, the Second Civil War, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Banning Vapes, Being Jealous of Joy, the emotion, not the person, God as an Enemy, Spitting on Car Batteries, Errors in the Bible, the Tower of Babel, Job, Parables, and Not Trusting the Bible. It was great to hear my son's understanding on these topics. There was a time when we would not be able to sit down and have a civil discussion about these things, and it's awesome to see his growth. Something else that I need to mention is that this podcast would not be possible if not for Aidan. He wrote and recorded the theme song, and he does all the behind-the-scenes techie stuff because I have no idea what I'm doing. Also, he has a bunch of music he has written, recorded, and released on iTunes and Spotify and other places, so go check that out as well. Enjoy the conversation.
Can I make a suggestion right out the gate?
Sure.
Sound. Turn down the gain a little bit, because if we're laughing and that's our normal laughing volume, it's spiking already.
Yeah, but so the gain is like
it is better to have it lower than higher, because I can bring it up.
because it's almost like totally.
Check. Ha 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 ha.
Still too much?
Ha 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 ha. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll just sit back here. Yeah, no, it's all good.
Don't laugh.
Oh yeah, no, I'll just never laugh. Laughing
It's not funny, you know. So anyway,
well,
cool, man.
Yeah, we're here. Finally,
We're doing it. Fun stuff.
Oh boy.
So you're nervous?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I
either.
mean, like I said, I do this all the time. I do streams. I've been on other podcasts. I've done all kinds of stuff. But like every time, as soon as you sit down, as soon as you hit record, the energy totally changes, and you're like, this is there forever.
Right.
Like I have to go back and listen to this, bro, and listen to my voice for 3 hours or however long this is going to be.
It's funny because a lot of people, I'll just kind of, like I just did with you, I just click record and we'll just continue talking about whatever nonsense we were talking about before, and they don't realize that it's on. And then as soon as they do realize it's on, like the whole demeanor changes, and they're like, oh man. Anyway.
That's gotta be fun though. It's like kind of that cold open kind of thing. It's just fun because you go right into it. And you're like, one of my favorite shows right now I was talking about earlier, Chuckle Sandwich. What Ted is notorious for doing that. The host of the show, where they'll all just be having a conversation and talking normally, and then suddenly he's like, "Welcome to Chuckle Sandwich," and they're all like, "What the heck is going on?" Okay, I guess the episode's starting. I guess he's recording now, and like,
because does he go back and? Oh, he doesn't, I guess, because you hear all that other stuff.
No, yeah, he'll leave like a minute or two of that conversation in the beginning, then all of a sudden he's just like, "Welcome to Chuckle Sandwich," and like
sometimes I'll cut it if it's like. If it doesn't make any sense, like if it starts like a mid-conversation almost, and like I don't want listeners to be like, "What in the world were they talking about?" You know? Yeah,
it's kind of funny though if it's like a comedic conversation. There's like people chuckling and laughing and stuff in the beginning. I don't know, but yeah,
cool. All right, man. Well, music's where we start.
Okay.
So
what do you got?
What's your favorite genre of music?
You gotta ask me on a weekly basis, bro. Like, it changes constantly. Right now, my biggest thing, I'm really into hyperpop, which is the newest, like kind of the newest iteration of what's like mainstream, like what you hear on the radio and stuff. I don't know if you've listened to a lot of like hyperpop stuff.
I don't even know what that means. I know what hyper means, and I know what pop means.
Well, it pretty much is exactly what it sounds like. It's pop music. Like the same typical, like, you know, 4-chord kind of thing going on, really easy to follow melodies, really catchy stuff, but it's all super high intensity. So it's like usually pitched up vocals and usually like chipmunky almost vocals, a lot of glitchy cuts, a lot of like hyper edits, like really small, minute details and stuff. It's very complicated, but it doesn't sound complicated.
Chipmunky meaning like high pitched?
Like they literally will pitch up their voice like a full octave. Seth and I were actually talking about this last night. He was showing me some of his demos, and shout out Seth Panda. He was showing me some of the demos, and one of them was like super hyperpop. I was like, dude, this is amazing. You need to drop it. And the whole thing, it doesn't sound like him. You can't tell it's him because the voice is all distorted and high. But at the same time, I think that genre itself kind of creates this unity because everybody sounds the same. They all sound with their voice pitched up and distorted and all using the same effects. It takes the artist bias out of it, because then you can just put on any hyperpop song. They all sound like the same person wrote them, and it makes it like you can, because the lyrics are generally super similar and simple. So it just, I don't know, it's just,
are they minimal? Like, is there not a whole lot of lyrics? It's kind of the same words.
Yeah,
kind of like a techno song where they just kind of say.
I don't know, and I could totally be describing this completely wrong. This is just my experience and interpretation of hyperpop. I think it's awesome.
We've made up genres on this podcast before where we're just like, oh, it's kind of like this, and then we'll just throw a word out there. I think I just made that up. So, did you have any examples of artists that are that genre?
Okay, so there are a bunch of them are super big on TikTok right now, but I can't place the artist's name off the top of my head, but there's this song called Engravings that has got to be the coolest sounding. I don't know if this even really fully qualifies as hyperpop. I would. His vocals aren't messed with, but like the music production is very hyperpop-esque. But it's a phenomenal song. It's fantastic. I mean, I haven't listened to any of his other stuff. I don't even know if he has anything else out yet. I don't know his name. Like, that's just kind of how TikTok works now, is you just hear a song, you're like, oh, that's cool. You put it on your playlist and you forget who the artist is. And it's unfortunate that that's how it plays out. But yeah, and the Engraving song, bro, is so cool because it's like imagine like Beethoven style, like like going up the piano, right? But with just this crazy bass beat going in the background. It's really interesting because it's like classically written, but with like modern like 808s and this really heavy kick, and it's really dark, and like the lyrics are really cool. And his voice is super like whispery and creepy almost. I don't know. Really good there. Suburban is an artist that is also on my list right now that is phenomenal.
Same genre?
Yeah, I would put him in the same genre as Engravings. Not quite hyperpop, but definitely there. Honestly, when I say hyperpop, I can't really think of any specific artists. And again, that's kind of just because of that ambiguity that comes with all the voices sounding the same. There's really no... there's a lack of uniqueness there, and that's what makes it unique, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what I remember. What was that? What was that genre that came out where they said Capital Kings was kind of that?
EDM?
No, there's another word. It was real big for a while, and I felt like that was the same. It was like every song to me sounded the same. I couldn't really tell. It was kind of techno-y, but there was a different name for it. it was because it was like recorded a certain way, like in reverse, not reverse. You totally know if you heard it.
I mean, maybe. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. Like Capital Kings to me is just EDM. Christian pop.
It's pop, yeah. But there's a certain thing that they do, and people that know it would say, "Oh, that's such and such." Oh, it's gonna kill me, man. It's gonna kill me now. It's gonna kill me now. But there was a certain thing. I'll think of it hopefully before we're done. But so that's you wouldn't say that's your favorite genre. Just that's right now.
Right now, and this so like I said, it's like changes every week. I go more off this than genre now. Like I definitely don't really. I hate to sound. This makes me sound a little bit pretentious, but. When people, you know how a lot of people say they're like, I like all music, I listen to all genres. I'm like, no, you don't. Mm-hmm. I do. I know I do. I do. Yeah, like I'll listen to anything. I'll give anything a fair shake, and I'm like, but I mean, most people. The reason I say most people don't is because I'm like, then why aren't you listening to my stuff? Like, what the heck? Why aren't you listening to my stuff? Like, why is my stuff the stuff that you turn off and skip or whatever? Right. So like that's how I know when people are faking.
Well, my criteria is always just if it's good. Yeah. I don't care what the genre is. I don't care what you call it.
Well, what would you define? Because that's subjective in and of itself. What would you say is good about it? Like because it's one thing to say like
I would just say if I enjoy listening to it, if I put it, whether it's the lyrics that are hitting me or it's just the beat, if it's the melody, if it's, I mean, it could be anything. It could, depending on the band, depending on the artist, it's going to hit me a different way. If I listen to it and I end that listening experience thinking I want to hear that again, right? That was really good, or that to me is good. Okay. And of course there's levels of that. Then there's like, oh my gosh, that was the best song I've ever heard in my life. I need to hear it over and over and over and over for 2 months.
What was your song for that then? Because that sounds like you're talking from experience.
Well, I mean, there's been a few. I think.
Dude, imagine I'm just like, what's your favorite song of all time? Yeah,
I couldn't pick that. Yeah, but I mean, one of the questions that I ask people is when was the last band or artist or whatever that you got into most recently, that when you heard it, you thought, this is unique, this is awesome, I need to get everything that they own. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the most recent was Alec Benjamin. Yeah. And then before that, it was 21 Pilots, probably, to that level of, or even more recently, like Tom MacDonald. I did that. I got all I have all his stuff now, except he just dropped 2 new albums like 2 days ago. I don't have those ones yet, but
we can get into Tom MacDonald in a minute. Yeah. That's someone I do want to talk about while I'm here. Yeah,
for sure.
But
before that, let's go back to, before you answer the question that I just asked myself, go back even farther. What's your earliest remembrance of music?
5 Hour and Frenzy Cheeses.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
The metal song on that one.
The metal rules. Yeah. Ash, what is it called? A chicken nugget? Something. He says something about a chicken nugget singing.
Something. Yeah.
I don't know where you got that from.
I don't know, but that, like, I mean, if that says anything about where like my music is or who I am as a person today, my sense of humor, that was the beginning of that for me. Was 5 Hour and Frenzy Cheese is a joke album that was like just fun and funny and stupid, and a bunch of B-sides that honestly some of them were great. Like Kamikaze is probably Kamikaze is my favorite 5 Hour song.
Kamikaze and Marty is on there too. Those are two
Marty's
of
really
their
good
best
too.
songs. Yeah. But other than that, it's just a bunch of nonsense.
Abraham Lincoln's Beard. I mean, come on, that's a masterpiece, bro. Like that is just music Hall of Fame, bro.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the earliest. So how old were you probably when you heard that?
5.
Okay. Maybe.
So there's that, and then I would also say probably around the same time. Actually, I have a funny kind of side story that goes along with this question. Mm-hmm. I was very into Joy Electric at the time, because that was like one of your favorite people you listen to, and I was just around a lot, so I would hear all his music and get all excited whenever a new album would come out.
Just because you were raised right. That's what.
I mean, just growing up like with listening to that. Mm-hmm. But what was funny is until I was probably about 8 or 9 years old, which is a little older than this should have happened, but it happened. Mm-hmm. I had a conversation with someone about music. I'll tell you who after. But like, I was having a conversation with them, and they were trying to tell me that Flyleaf was like their favorite band. Mm-hmm. And I was like, but Joy Electric's the best.
Right.
Like in my head, definitively, it was just a known fact across the planet that Joy Electric was the best band of all time.
Right.
And so what ended up happening was like that was the moment that I realized I was like, oh, opinions are a thing. Like people can have different opinions. And then I listened to Flyleaf like 10 years later and was like, okay, I missed out, bro.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm not sure there could be two different styles of music. You know.
Well, because of that, what's funny is those two bands are forever linked in my head. When I listen to one, I want to listen to the other. Like I have playlists that are just intermixed of like going back and forth from their two bands.
Yeah. Did you see a couple weeks ago that Lacey Sturm announced that she's rejoining Flyleaf?
Yes, I did. And one of my buddies from work is huge on Flyleaf. Like, he's got the Bluetooth speaker. He's always blasting.
Oh, they're awesome.
Blasting it, dude.
They're
Flyleaf
awesome.
is a phenomenal band.
Right.
And I am very excited to hear Lacey Sturm's coming back. Her solo stuff's great, too.
It's fantastic. And what I like about her is that she writes what she wants to write. Like, she doesn't care. I mean, she'll be very open with her spirituality and her music and very bold with it. And I mean, they're touring with like all these like death metal bands and stuff all the time, right? Like they're on like Ozfest and like they're playing with all these people that probably think like, oh my gosh, these are like Christian and heavy metal people. Yeah, right. Whatever, you know.
That's something like I love seeing because that to me really shows how legitimate their faith is. Yeah. Which, and again, keep in mind, this is coming from someone who is not a Christian. But I respect it. I see it. I'm like, this is someone who knows what they believe and they hold to it so strongly that amidst a culture of drug abuse and like just this era of constantly clout and people fighting and brand deals and all this stuff going on, that they maintain that. And that's rare. I mean, you want to talk about Five Iron, they switched. They just converted to they cracked under pressure. That's what that was. And same with MXPX, same with Beartooth, same with who else? A lot of bands. And honestly, to me, usually, again, even I'm not a Christian, I don't care, but it still makes me sad and makes me want to listen to their music less because I'm like, these are people who crack under pressure super easily. Because I'm like, clearly it's possible. Flyleaf is doing it. Right. And or Skillet is another fantastic example. I mean, Skillet's a band that's well known. That is another good example. Like, Skillet is like, you talk to anybody, they probably know who Skillet is, or at least have heard like a song, probably Monster. But like, yeah.
And especially with John Cooper's like his political bent now, because he has a podcast where he's very conservative, very right leaning. Yeah. Oh yeah, and he's very bold in what he talks about. And I keep thinking to myself, like, man, I mean, already your lyrics are already overtly Christian, but now you're even jumping on the conservative thing, and you're like, you're really hitting some of these heavy topics on your podcast. I'm like, but he doesn't care. That's the whole point. He's like, this is what I believe, and I think that's what you're getting at. It's like, exactly. Even though you don't necessarily believe what they believe, you respect their ability to stand on it and say, look, this is what I believe. If you cancel me, fine, you cancel me. If you don't buy my album, whatever. This is what I'm singing about, you know?
No, so exactly. Did you ever see, did I send you the video of Skillet reacting to old Skillet songs, trying to get somewhere? Okay. So, but that, like, weird, this is going to be really weird. So do you remember Veggie Rocks, that album? Oh, yeah. That's their version of Stand, which I know you hate.
I didn't like it,
I know you don't like it.
Yeah.
But what's funny to me is anytime I see, like, that's the theme song for people with strong spines for me, is that version of Stand from Veggie. Oh, really? Like, so whenever I hear a story of someone standing up for what they believe in, that song gets stuck in my head, and I'm like, Stand! Like, it's so dope. Like, I'm sorry, man. It's just it's not Skillet. It doesn't sound like Skillet. It's just a metal song, but it's a good metal song, in my opinion.
Right. Before we leave this, though, let's talk about that a little more, about with like Five Iron and MXPX and stuff. Is there's I'm not sure if with them it was necessarily cracking under the pressure. I mean, I know with Five Iron they talked a lot about it. In fact, the first time they broke up,
why they broke up,
many years ago. Well, I mean, there was a lot of band members. I know the drummer was one, the guitar player that had denounced the faith. They had realized, look, I don't believe this anymore. Right. And obviously, if you're kind of not that they were really a preachy band, but I mean they meant a lot to their Christian fans, and they had some very spiritual songs, and you know that's got to be Dandelions, Every New Day, you know, some of those ones. But I mean, it's got to be really hard to be a band that's doing that, touring, writing music like this, and have a few of the band members like, look, I don't even believe this stuff anymore. Like that's got to be rough, you know?
Yeah.
And there's this whole, they're calling it deconstruction. I don't know if you've heard that term yet, but
no, actually,
it's like a big thing where that's basically the term used for people that were professing Christians
that are
now saying that they're not, or not necessarily saying that they're not, but they're not holding to the entire thing that like they used to. Like they'll say, okay, well maybe what was the big guy, the guy that wrote I Kissed Dating Goodbye or whatever. He wrote that whole book on purity, and he was a pastor. And
I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot what his name was, but anyway, he wrote some book, and then he recently came and said that he doesn't believe that anymore. He divorced his wife. He's going to pride rallies, and that came, you know, I mean,
that's
it, just things like that. But if you were to ask him, say, well, are you a Christian? He might still say yes, but he wouldn't be lining up as much with mainstream Christianity as far as like, well, we take the Bible as all truth, right? Instead of kind of cherry picking which parts that you like. So, but it is a bummer for a fan, especially like, as you know, for me with 5 Iron, it was a little rough when it's one thing when they're like, oh, we're not Christians anymore. But like with that newest album, with adding a little bit of profanity in there, it's like,
yeah,
come on,
and
really?
it's something like, even in my case, like, I get it. I mean, as someone who makes and writes music, like there's a lot of, actually, again, I was just talking to Seth about this last night. Like I'm in a place now where like I'm openly not Christian. I've said this on social media several times. I've had several conversations with people you guys know.
Sure.
And I mean, to be completely honest, I mean, we know this too. I don't mind swearing at all.
Right.
I actually, it is something that I'm not against in any capacity, because to me they're just words. But at the same time, it's very rare you'll hear me put that in music, because I know my audience. I know the people listening to it are majority Christian, because I was raised in the church. Most of the people listening are my friends and family and stuff like that. Right. And I'm like, I don't want to make this unlistenable for them.
Right.
So it's like, don't get me wrong, I have a whole album's worth of songs that I'm just never going to put out, or at least wait for a while to do so, because until that transition's made easier. But what happens a lot of times, it feels like they're deliberately trying to be like, I'm making a statement, I'm going to put swearing in my music now just to say I'm not a Christian. It's like, that's really immature. That's like a 6-year-old who learned how to cuss for the first time and running around saying the word over and over, being like, I'm so cool.
Yeah, I call it the Disney star symptom, or not symptom,
syndrome.
Syndrome.
Yeah,
because it's, you know, that's when some Disney star, that's their whole, oh no, I don't want to be typecast as a Disney star, so I'm going to do a sex scene in a movie, or something, or a nude scene or something, and everybody's like, what in the world? Like, what happened?
So that's an interesting, that could be its own episode to delve into that whole thing, because I have a lot of thoughts on that whole situation.
On Disney stars?
On specifically that. Long story. One thing with that too is, sorry, give me a sec. My brain hurts.
Brain freeze.
Yeah. So like with the case of that, I mean, Demi Lovato. Okay. Speaking of, actually, that's someone else. While we're on the music topic, her newest album.
Yeah, you showed it to me.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Every single song is a headbanging, insane, like...
Yeah, I listened to it. You sent it to me, I listened to it, and I was impressed. I've always been impressed with Demi Lovato. Yeah. I think her, vocally, she's fantastic, and the new album is much more rock, obviously. I like that style much more than her poppy stuff, for sure. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, but in her case, so one thing I'll say... In a lot of cases with that Disney Channel like theory about people who like most of those kids went through a ton of like abuse while they were being those child stars.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
So not like, just playing devil's advocate a little bit here, when that kind of stuff happens, I'm like, okay, so it looks like they're going out there and like trying to make a statement or whatever. In the case of I feel bad. Jeanette McCurdy, right? Is that
from iCarly.
From iCarly, right? Sam from iCarly. She had a horrible experience, and she wrote a whole book about it. And I listened to part of it on like the audiobook version, and
Is that I'm glad my mom's dead or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, I remember reading the title when it came to the library. I was That's harsh.
No, well, that's kind of her. So yes, she's making a statement, but at this point, it's more like she's recounting like, it's not like they just flipped on a dime. In a lot of cases, it's so much just built up over time behind the scenes. Because I mean, they're stars, they're superstars. We don't see everything. We just see what the media portrays. And totally. Usually, it's very, very wrong.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
No, you're right.
No, sorry, that was its own whole side tangent.
No,
but like,
you're right. That's totally true, because and then her book, she's talking about how her mom pushed her to that. Her mom was telling her, don't eat. You know, you need to stay skinny so you can have this appeal, and you can, if you get fat, they won't cast you anymore. And I was like, I mean, what does that do to a kid? No, exactly. They have no childhood.
And that's not even mentioning the Nickelodeon producers, bro, who are all like foot fetish pedophiles, like all of them, and would make them do terrible things. Right. And
but see, how much does that? So like for me, when I look at my kids, if any of my kids were like, hey, Dad, I want to get into Hollywood. I want to be a child actor. I don't know about that.
Oh, no.
Part of me is like, yeah, it might be a good way for them to get famous and get whatever. But not that I want to be famous, but everything that goes into that, right? There's so much sexualization of those young children that are involved in it. I was like, I wouldn't put my kids through that.
No, I mean, this is one of the reasons. I mean, on this trip alone, you've heard me say this a couple of times now, where I'm openly boycotting Disney now, right? Because I can't believe the stuff they've gotten away with. And we'll just take Disney Channel alone. Selena Gomez has so many stories to tell about that. She's talked about it in interviews and stuff. The guy who played Justin on Wizards, he was like straight up assaulted at one point, I believe. I could be wrong. Oh, hold up. Let me clarify. I could be completely wrong about that. Yeah. But I'm going off of like third-hand information.
Yeah. It's okay. Only 4 people are going to listen to this anyway.
Yeah, they see my name in the title and they just click off.
No, I just mean in general. Not the guests, just the podcast. We're not exactly Joe Rogan at this point, so,
We'll get there. But, yeah.
All right, so back to that. So that was your first memory was cheeses. What about first band, singer, artist that you just really NF was NF. Wow, you usually have these questions, answers ready to rock.
I have a list on my laptop. I have a whole doc of like all this kind of stuff already just written down. I have cheeses on there. I have Joy Electric on there. I have NF. I'm sure we're going to move forward in the timeline. I can just keep going down the list.
Okay, so tell me about NF and how he impacted your life.
And this is going to sound like every single like ex-church kid from my generation, but NF literally changed my life in every possible capacity, because first off, this is the first artist in the Christian space I'd ever heard who got it, who understood depression, the ins and out, and wasn't afraid to say it. And I never felt, when I listened to Mansion, and actually there's an interesting side story here too, but when I listened to Mansion for the first time, the song Mansion, like I had never felt so seen by an artist before. I was like, oh my gosh, he gets it. Like, yes, I didn't go through the physical abuse he did. Of course not. Like I had great parents growing up. I mean, I'm not just saying that because I'm being recorded in front of one of them right now. But
I agree. You did have great parents.
But like the mental side of that, the feeling locked in your own head, like he says, like he built himself a house and he locks himself in and he's stuck in there with his own fear. Like that is so accurate to how depression is and how it impacted me at the time as like a 13, 14-year-old kid going into high school, like just clicked with me. And I mean, from there, every single thing he's done as he's growing up, I'm growing up with him. Every album he releases has always coincided with where I'm at in life in some way, shape, or form. It's mind blowing. Right. Like when The Search came out and he was finally getting started on therapy and stuff, right? That was around the time that I was starting to realize I have all these problems. I need to figure myself out. So I was like maybe an album behind. I was like where he was in perception when he was releasing The Search, right? Right. But all this to say, I had never heard anyone make music like that. And that's ultimately what made me decide to make music to begin with, was because hearing something that wasn't just praise Jesus, everyth's great. Like, because to me, that's all music was at the time. It was just like, yeah, it's just praise Jesus. Oh, that sounds kind of cool.
Kind of shallow.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it got, not because the message was shallow, but because it was all I was hearing. So then this guy comes out of the woodworks and is just like, yeah, no, this is reality. This is reality. The harsh cold. This is what's going on in my life. I want to talk about it. I want to vent about it. So that, I mean, ultimately is why I started making music at all, was because of this album. When we got it, picked it up from the dollar bin or whatever, when we did,
the Parable,
and listened to it at the Santa Barbara Zoo, bro. And oh my gosh, life changing, man.
Yeah, and it's funny because it was that song, which I know you don't really care too much for. That was the first song we had ever heard.
Yeah. Worst song in the album, I'll Keep On.
I'll Keep On, yeah. See, I do really like that song, but it's interesting because when I listened, that's the song that got me to buy the CD at the store. And I was like, oh, it's only $5. I'll grab it, you know, because it's brand new in the shrink wrap and everything. I was like, oh, $5, I'll buy it. Because like, that song's pretty cool. But then when I popped it in, and you just start with intro, and then it goes into Mansion, I'm like, oh my gosh, like the other songs on this album are even better than the one that I heard on the radio. And it was like, this guy is awesome, you know.
What's funny to me is I feel like they just didn't know how to market him.
Right.
So I feel like that's why I don't like I'll Keep On as much, because it feels like that song was made to be a single, and it was solely just to get him his name out there. Which, don't get me wrong, it worked. Right. It put his name.
Well, especially for Christian radio, right? Because the song is very, very Christian in its lyrics. You know, it's to where the rest of the album, like you said, it deals more with anxiety and depression and his mental kind of issues. And obviously, you know, K-Love's not going to want to put on something like that, because they're more kind of the happy, bubbly, you know, which is sad, because I know a lot of non-believers who look at Christianity and they think it's phony, because they know that people aren't really happy all the time. But you go to church and a lot of times they make it seem like, oh, this is what we have to let the world know that we're happy all the time. And I'm like, no, I think the world would be more impacted by seeing you in your struggles, seeing you, and yes, seeing where your hope lies, seeing who you're hanging on to through those struggles. But this whole phony idea, like a Christian never has any problems and everything's sunshine and roses all the time, it's ridiculous. You know,
that's exactly why I have so much respect for Flyleaf, where they're at right now. Right. Because they're going through all that thing, and they're very much pushing through. I hate to say this now, but like the quote unquote sinful stuff that they're going through, the sinful lifestyles that are happening around them and all that, they're pushing through that and continuing to show people, yes, we are strong, believing Christians. We stand on our beliefs, and like they will carry us through this. Right. And that has a greater impact to me than like as a non-believer. Like it I don't know, because it's relatable to a certain extent, right? Like seeing other people struggle is relatable, and I think that's something a lot of people well, I mean, we can get into the whole generation debate later, but I would argue that this generation of people is getting more used to that idea that everyone has these struggles, so it's okay to talk about them. It's okay to go be like, yeah, I had a really bad day today, I don't feel good, I'm feeling super anxious today, so just bear with me. Like, I'm gonna be like, for me, I always like, whenever I have high anxiety, I talk a lot. So I always go into work and I'll tell people, I'm like, just a heads up, I am not feeling great today. So if I'm talking too much, let me know. I will shut up, I promise. And stuff like that. It's just becoming more easy to communicate that kind of thing. At the same time, not, but that's something. Right.
Why do you think that so many Christians would want to not show that side of themselves? The struggle side, like I'm gonna be real, I can't really place a good reason. Okay. Because I feel so strongly about this. Actually, I'm gonna use it. There's a specific circumstance I'm thinking of that I can use as an example without dropping names, but there is a family I know who is notorious for trying to put on that face, and that their whole family all the time, the heads of the household are very much enforcing on the kids. You guys need to be happy all the time, constantly. Never show anyone you're suffering. Never show anyone this thing going on, because we need to look perfect, because we're Christians and we want everyone to see us. We want to be a light to the world. And what this has turned into is them having to bury down so many legitimate problems. Like some of the kids in this family need legitimate help that they're not getting. Right. And so I guess that would be the reasoning, was them trying to be a light for people and being like, oh, look at me, I'm a Christian.
I have this faith. I have this joy that you don't have, which is true.
Right.
A lot of Christians have this joy that I almost look at just with complete bewilderment. I'm like, how are you happy right now?
Right.
But then what people take that as is they take it and they take another step further and they're like, okay, I need to be this all the time, constantly. I'm like, no, go home and cry.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
Dude, go punch a wall. Go yell at something. Like, it's okay. No one is going to get upset at you for that. No one is going to think anything less of you. If anything, they're going to think less of you for constantly putting on this face of, yes, I am a Christian. I am glowing with holiness.
Right.
And,
yeah, because I think most people see it as phony. I don't think there's a lot of people that, I mean, at least in that circumstance, like I said, if there's somebody that's really going through a struggle, like I've known people that have gone through really hard things, and you see the strength of their faith through that. I think that might draw people and say, oh, I wish I had that kind of faith through those hard circumstances. But the whole smiling all the time and I mean, you know, making it sound like you have no problems ever, I don't think that appeals to people at all, because I think they know it's not true. There's nobody on the planet that doesn't have any problems. That's just not reality, you know?
No, I would argue that is the biggest takeaway from the book of Job. Like, that's what people should be taking away from that story. This is a man who lost everything.
Right.
Like, his wife, his kids, his friends, his farm, his land. He was sick. He was destroyed. He was in like the closest to a living hell you can possibly be in.
Yep.
And that man still kneeled before God.
Yeah.
And still worshipped him.
Right.
So that's like, I don't know why people, man, I'm getting all, when I get like irritated, I start to like lose track of what I'm talking about.
That's right. You won't be the first ADD person that we've had.
Well, exactly. So. I'm unmedicated ADHD. Like, can't focus on anything for longer than 5 seconds. So bear with me, listeners. I apologize.
Well, we'll get more into that stuff later on, but.
And forewarning, there's gonna be so many times I'll be like, oh, we'll circle back to that. Right. We'll never circle back to it. Just spam him and get me back on another episode.
Well, we will if I make a note of it, which is why I have this pen right here, because I started doing that because I started to realize as I would go through and listen to some of the episodes, like, oh, we never actually went back and talked about that, you know. So back to NF, let's talk about let's do your favorite album first.
Mansion.
Hands down.
Hands down.
No question.
Zero question in my mind. That is the album that has been there for me through every breakup, that has been there for me through every major emotional thing I've had since the album came out, which was like early high school for me. I think junior high.
2015, I think.
I think so, yeah. So I would have been 13. And it's one I can always go back to. I mean, my favorite song, I have a definitive answer for my favorite song of all time, by the way, and that's All I Have by NF off of Mansion is the greatest song ever to me, because it continues to motivate me to make music every time I listen to it, because the whole point of it is it doesn't matter. People are going to leave. Stuff's going to change. At the end of the day, I still have my guitar. I can sit down and write something and vent this emotion. It doesn't. This is all I have. Like, this is everything. All my hopes and dreams are riding on this. Right. So
when you're having like writer's block in songwriting,
I put it on.
You put that on.
I will put that one on, and I will usually do that and clean my room while doing it.
Nice.
And so it's just a habit I get into where I will never get tired of that song. The production is phenomenal. Tommy Prophet, the producer for NF, is one of, actually, no, I would argue my favorite producer of all time.
He's on all his albums, right?
Yes, I believe so.
At least from Mansion forward.
I don't think he did Moments.
Okay.
I think that was before, but I think he has some deal with Capitol or something, and that's how NF met him. Or I could be wrong about that, but.
So do you think that you easily can definitively give a favorite song of all time, and you can say that now? When you look like 10, 15 years down the road, do you still think that will be your answer? Or do you think it'll change with like your life experience and the things that you go through? Well,
I mean, the song has been out for almost 10 years now anyways, and I'm still listening to it, and it's still just as good. So, I mean, I'd like to think it's not going anywhere. I mean, when I eventually go get tattoos, I'm getting the lyrics like on my neck.
Of the whole song?
Well, the hook. I'm going to get it in Japanese. Like,
I was going to say, you need to get
I get it. It goes all the way down the side of my body. It just keeps going. It's down the end of the song is at my ankle.
Man.
But No, I mean, I don't see the love for that song going anywhere. I mean, there may be something else that impacts my life more that comes out later in life, for all I know.
I guess more what I was getting at, like, as you, so you've been dealing with kind of depression, anxiety stuff for a big part of your adolescent life, you know, which you're still very young, 20, right? 20?
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
Hey, man.
Wow, bro.
At least I was right. At least I was right. So I'm just saying, like, if you're anything like me, because I struggled with that also at your age, I still do to some degree, but I did eventually get to a point where I did see light and I did find joy in life. And I'm not saying you've never been there, but I mean, almost as a more overtaking part of my life, to where
the scales were tipped the other way.
Yeah, in a sense, and to where you listen to something like someone who's dealing with those things in that, at least in that song. Well, who knows, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, maybe NF won't even be in those places anymore. Maybe he'll be totally happy and everything's great. Album. Yeah, and everybody's like, what is this garbage? But I mean, to where you could, I love NF. I can listen to those songs that you're talking about, even if I'm not necessarily dealing with that at the time, and I can still enjoy it. It's not going to have that same impact like what you're talking about, to where it's like, okay, this guy gets me, he understands me, because I'm no longer in that place. You know what I mean? That's I guess that's what I was getting at.
Oh God.
I guess that's a hard question to answer, because until you get there, you won't know.
No, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm like, I really just won't know.
Right.
I don't really have an answer for that.
Okay. All right. So also we saw him live. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm going to be, I think the reason that show, because I know why you're asking this question. I know exactly why, because you know my thoughts on this and you've heard me ranting about it.
I don't remember. I know what Danny thought.
It sucked. It objectively sucked. But here's why I think it sucked so bad to us.
I disagree, by the way. I thought it was great.
So, two major reasons. One, we had seen 21 Pilots, I think, twice at that point.
Well, they're the best.
Well, they had the... Well, and
can't follow
you got to
that.
remember, for me, that was the main... those are basically the only, like, real concerts I've been to. Like, I mean, I've been to a couple, like, since I moved out, I've gone to a couple, like, local things with, like, 30 people in the crowd.
Right.
But, like, as far as, like, an actual, like, amphitheater full of people, this energy, everyone's screaming the lyrics, them playing songs from all 5 albums or however many they have now, like, that was amazing.
Right.
And then going in to see NF, I had my hopes just as high. So when I go in and I see him and he just plays stuff from Perception, which was my least favorite album at the time. Don't get me wrong, I love Perception.
Right.
And I love what it meant for him. It was kind of a stepping off point for him to...
Just stuff from The Search, wasn't it? It was The Search tour.
Oh, it was my bad. You're right. It was The Search tour.
Yeah. But he didn't play anything from Mansion.
He didn't play anything from Mansion or Therapy Session. He did one song from Perception that he did. Right.
And everything was The Search. Yeah. Which I get, because that is the tour. But like you said with 21 Pilots,
I was like,
they played all the other stuff too.
I was hoping for just one, because I mean, he openly too. I've heard him talk in interviews before too about how much he thinks Mansion sucks. I'm like,
the album?
Yeah, he doesn't like it anymore. I'm like, dang.
Well, but see, as you being a musical artist yourself, you know what that's like.
Yeah, of course.
You can go back and listen to Is a Loser, right? And you cringe. You're like, what is this? This is horrible, right?
I listened to Isn't Feeling Well, which for context came out like a month ago.
Right.
I still cringe.
Right, and that's true of every other person I know. Our friend Chris, mutual friend Chris, he's the same way. Like but he'll say that years and years later, sometimes now he goes back to some of those old albums and he's like, oh, this is really solid.
So that I have an explanation for, actually, because I feel like I'm actually kind of getting there with Is a Loser a little bit, because at a certain point you stop feeling like the same person that you were there. It literally feels like you're listening to just another artist. And that's definitely how it feels for me. I went back, I mean, I'm currently on hiatus from making music, but I've been going back and listening to a bunch of old B-sides that I have a lot. I have a lot of songs that are completely finished and just sitting there that I never put out.
Have I never heard those?
Most of them, no. I'm working on it, man. I'm gonna be releasing them all pretty quick. So I wasn't gonna say anything, but
you can plug that. Go ahead.
I mean, by the time this comes out, it'll probably be out for like 3 months. But
is it gonna be like a B-side collection album?
Yeah,
you're just gonna throw them all on one.
Yep, okay. And it's gonna have some that you're not gonna like. But just so I have them out there, it's gonna have some that are really cringy, some that are not polished well, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Right.
But I'm listening to all these, and I'm like, this is a weird thought actually I had the other day. I was like, that 16-year-old kid is more mature than I am now in a lot of ways. Like, I was listening to some of the lyrics, I was like, dang. I wrote that. Like, I wrote that's a bar.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
So you've been demoting, is what you're trying to say? You've been.
Oh, absolutely. No. I actually. So I was talking to someone about this, and I described it like this. Like, I have like a scale thing, right? So it's like quality of the production has gone up over time. I've gotten better. I've learned more about Ableton and stuff. The lyrics. What the heck was Dust? What the heck was Sober Dreams? Like, all these songs are like, you actually listen to the words I'm saying. I'm like, why did I?
Sober Dreams is the one about you missing your old friends, right? That's a good one. I like that one.
I don't know. That one, it was just a really drawn out way to say a single sentence.
Yeah.
What that song was. I just really just drew it out for a full song instead of just saying what I meant.
Right.
But I mean, I listened back. One of the ones that actually legitimately blew my mind listening back to it again was Afraid of the Dark. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it's called. Why am I blanking?
Yeah, is Afraid of the Dark, yeah.
Well, the first
song.
The song,
yeah.
Right? I actually don't remember what I called it.
Yeah, that's the one with
because it was
build.
called, it was like the very NFE
Something
cinematic
moving
build.
forward,
right?
not moving back, or whatever.
Oh, I'm scared to move forward.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So I was listening to that, and I was like, dang, these are good lyrics. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why did I write this? What was I feeling at that time?
Right.
But again, so all this to say, like, I got to this certain point where now I kind of am able to go back and listen to all this old stuff. And it really does just feel like I'm listening to a different artist, because it's like, I'm not writing stuff like that anymore at all. Like, I'm making like EDM stuff now. And
it's totally different.
Yeah.
And that's what people ask me, like, when they hear some of your newer stuff that's out. And I usually explain it like this. This is his first official, and I know you're not signed or anything, but like your first official release is very acoustic driven. It's you and an acoustic guitar.
Zero production put into it.
Yeah, but dude, I love it though. I really do. But then you progress, and I think your sound gets better. And I think your second album was very hip hoppy, a lot of rap stuff in there. But then the newest one is more, or the newest being Isn't Feeling Well is more EDM, like you're saying. It's more
I would say, honestly, I could not put myself in a genre. I couldn't even put each individual album into a genre, because I mean, even Isn't Feeling Well, it's like it opens up with a synthwave 80s song, sorry for spitting, but it opens up with this very like like very upbeat kind of thing, and then ends on this like on Noise, which is like this like prog rock super dark electronic thing going on. There's a guitar part, and then it just goes, which this was very intentional, by the way, going off the rails with it, because I just wanted to have fun for the outro of the whole album. So I have a 1.5 just instrumental of just, it's like a really weird, creepy soundscape thing.
Right.
There's no lyrics. There's nothing. It's just like.
But you throw in a melody from some other song, remember? Because I remember telling you that's really cool that you did that.
At the very end, I fade in.
I don't remember what song it was.
Freeverse, I think.
Yeah, the one with Isaac.
With Isaac, Which, shout out to homie. No, that song was fun to make. Freeverse. Yeah. That was which a lot of people actually. I got a decent amount of hate for that song from people. Yeah, because people when they typically when a hip hop artist puts Freeverse, it's like usually like a major fast diss track. Like a good example is EKOH he has 6 Freeverse ones, like Freeverse, Freeverse 2, Freeverse 3.
Is that like freestyle? Is that
so? A Freeverse essentially just is like I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and I'm just gonna so generally it's like one take. It's not a freestyle. They write it down first, but they'll do it in a single take. They don't do it chopped up in the different verses and like stuff like that. But when I kind of interpret that as, I'm just gonna, me and my homie who doesn't rap like a whole lot, we're just gonna have fun. And make a song, and it doesn't have to be good. We're joking around, we're shouting yeet in the background and stuff. Like, we're just goofing around. And like, I feel like a lot of people didn't get that.
Right.
And it kind of sucks. That's kind of why I keep bringing it back every once in a while. I'll be like, hey, remember the song exists? Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's bad in every possible way. Our lyrics are bad. Our delivery is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, this one is on par with I Miss You for levels of cringe for me. So, like...
which is funny, because in Freeverse that you diss...
Isaac disses Caleb.
I Miss You,
which is hilarious, because... For people who don't know, me, Isaac, and Caleb were all in a band together at one point. So that's what makes that so funny.
Which is where you got the heart.
Yeah,
symbol.
which is where the logo came from, too. Yeah, which was courtesy... I can't remember... which one of us drew it first? I feel like it was me. I might have been me. I can't remember. But I just know when the band broke up, we all kept a different part of it. Caleb kept the T-shirts. Isaac kept the Instagram account, and I kept the logo.
Nice.
So we split custody.
Yeah. When you're kind of the only one still doing anything, releasing things, right? I mean,
yeah. Caleb is. Last time I talked to him a couple years ago, he was getting very into metal and playing guitar and stuff, which he was actually pretty good.
Well, he's the worship guy for the youth group at Calgary right now, so he does that.
Yeah, that's fun. For him, I feel like music was always more of a hobby for him, and that's dope. Don't get me wrong, I love that for him. I think he does have talent. He really does, and yeah, I'm going to end that there because I'm just going to cut this out later because I don't want to deal with any repercussions.
Yeah, we don't need to go down that road. But so back to the NF show. So your whole beef with it was that he didn't play the song, but the songs he did play, you felt like they sounded good and he did a good job, or do you feel like?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what I was going to get to. I'm so sorry for that. It's half-hour side tangent.
No problem.
But
that's what's fun about this.
The show itself was fantastic. Mm-hmm. It hit all the marks for me with as far as the sound quality went, the volume, the energy in the crowd was all really, really good. Mm-hmm. The thing, his tour drummer was awesome.
Yeah.
And seeing Kid play before was awesome.
See, that was a defining moment for me because Kid the band is like one of my favorites now. Mm-hmm. I get so excited when he releases something new because I love it. And I would have never, ever heard of the guy if he had not opened up for NF.
And, dude, I love... And he even co-wrote 10 Feet Down with NF.
Yeah.
And... which is another one of my favorite NF songs.
Right.
Yeah, Kid is a phenomenal artist that is grossly underrated.
Yeah, because nobody has heard of him.
Because nobody's heard of him.
Yeah.
Dude, and I keep sharing Human with people because that's my favorite one of his.
That's a good one, yeah.
Well, that's another song that hits so personally for me because it's talking about, you have a best friend growing up who just kicks you out and you're like, what the heck, man? I thought we were bros.
I think it's about his brother.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I know there was two. The brothers were in the band together, and then the one brother left, and he just continued to do it solo.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the lyrics to that song, it's almost like,
Yeah, which makes sense. I love just the line, "Why'd you have to be human?"
Yeah.
Like, it's so different.
Right.
But yeah, no, the show was really good. I wish I had looked up the name of the tour drummer he was working with because I like to follow I like to find out who the other side members of the band are on stage and kind of find out more about them. Be like, okay, because I feel like no one does that. Right. You see the bassist playing, you're not going to be asking his name. You're not going to remember the bassist at a huge show.
Well, depending. Some of my favorite bass players, they make the whole song for me. You can hear them.
Well, yeah. Sorry, I mean, if they're not, if they're not a member of the band, or
if they're
supporting an artist or something, it's like no one's going to look up the house band, right? No one, generally, no one cares, which I think is really unfortunate because there's a YouTuber I watch, Adam Neely, who that's what he does. He plays in a lot of gigs around New York and stuff. He's just like a bassist for hire. But he has so many fun stories and behind the scenes stuff to talk about. Yeah. So he just made a YouTube channel talking about it, and it's really cool. I'm like, okay, I want to meet these guys and have lunch with them and sit down, do this, have a conversation with them, and be like, man, what was that like? I heard the sound cut out at this part. What was going through your head?
Right.
Which, I know you've never played a live show like that, but I mean, even doing bass for the Harbor, the panic that sets in when something goes wrong with the sound.
Or for me, if I just hit a wrong note. And even though nobody in the audience probably even notices it, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I just totally messed up. My face flushes. I'm all nervous now. Like, oh my gosh, I messed that up. But I'm probably the only one that really noticed.
Yeah. At least with bass, the way they mixed it there, you sit underneath everything enough to where you can kind of get away with it without anyone. And if they do notice, they're not going to say anything. I was on drums.
Right.
It was very obvious when I messed up.
Right.
Especially since I always messed up so extravagantly. I would throw my sticks. I would knock a stand over or something. Were you... I don't remember if you were even there. I feel like this was one of the Sundays you weren't there for some reason. But I knocked over a cymbal stand while playing, and like one of the crash cymbals, and it fell over, and we're still in the middle of the song, and I needed a crash.
During the service?
Yeah, during the service.
Oh, no, I wasn't
during
there.
the service, I knocked over the crash stand. So I had to play the rest of the song with no crash cymbal, which is kind of like the most important part of the, like a worship drum kit. You need a crash cymbal.
Yeah.
So like I was having to, that's one of my favorite parts about drumming is you have this open ability to just have to improv. Like if you mess something up, something like that happens, you're like, I got a ride cymbal. I can hit that really hard and kind of make the same sound maybe. Or I can, or like whenever the kick pedal breaks, you're like, okay, I guess I'm just using the floor tom now. I'm just gonna hit that a bunch and hope it sounds good. Like, cause something breaks on the drum kit, that's like an hour of fixing it. So you can't really do that in the middle of a set. You kind of just have to roll with it.
It's not like just like switching out a guitar if your string breaks.
Which even then is annoying too. But yeah, your string breaks on a guitar, you can fix that super quickly.
Right.
A drum kit, you knock something over, you break something, each piece is $1,000. So like...
Yeah. All right. Well, lastly, in the music category, give me. We already talked about it. I'm sure some of these are going to fall into this anyway because we already talked about them. But if you could pick your top 5, your top 5 delicious drinks like chai. No, your top 5 bands, artists.
Oh gosh. Okay. This is gonna be hard because it changes like every week. I have my lifetimes, like what we already talked about. NF and then we were, or no, and then there were none.
Which I find so interesting that you really connected to that band. They had one album, nobody's ever heard it. But it's just something about them really connected with you.
Dude, I've never heard. For anyone listening, go look up And Then There Were None. The planet Who Speaks for Planet Earth, or the album Who Speaks for Planet Earth. I've never heard pop punk rock kind of stuff melded so seamlessly with just straight up dance EDM. Like in what world do those two genres fit together? Because they don't. But they do it so well, and the two vocalists playing off each other so perfectly, and the way they write their lyrics are so poetic. I mean, again, not trying to spend the whole podcast talking about my music, but like my song Dust was very much inspired by their style of writing, because it's like, you can tell there's a story there, but they leave out details. They leave out core parts of the story to be up to interpretation, but it's so selective, and what they do leave out of the story is generally stuff it's either not important. It's like, okay, so one of the lyrics is, "You'll never find her. She never said she meant goodbye." Right? What does that make? When you hear those two sentences back to back, what do you think happened? What do you think's the story?
What was the second part again?
So you'll never find her. She never said she meant goodbye.
She never said that she meant goodbye. Oh, like suicide?
Right. So it takes you a second.
Yeah.
And this is a repeating part in the bridge. It's like, in that sentence alone, it takes you a second. And I love that. I love that you have to go back and listen to it. It's like watching an M. Night movie. You have to go back and watch it 6 times before you understand what happened.
Right.
I love it so much. And their one album is on par with Mansion for me as being my favorite album of all time. It goes back and forth all the time.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, which is funny because they're completely different genres. It just depends on what kind of headspace I'm in.
Right, and like with NF, I mean, not that he is pretty popular, but you'll still find some people that have never heard of him. But And Then There Were None, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that's heard of that band. You know what I mean?
Well, and it doesn't help that there's another band called And Then There Were None,
right?
Which is like some Swedish metal band. Which is, I've listened to their stuff just out of curiosity, which is honestly pretty good. I mean, it's just Swedish metal.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's actually that, and then There Were None is the title of an Agatha Christie.
Yeah, it's a novel, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I've never read it. I don't know anything about it.
And I think that was the second title given because the first one had a racial slur in the title. Yeah, it was like 5 little.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What?
Something like that. You know, because I mean, she wrote back in the 1910, 1920s in that area. Yeah. So I mean, back then it was
just a different time.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then as time progressed, they're like, we can't have this as the title anymore. We still want to have this be a book we sell because it's a good book, but we can't have that as a title. So then they switched. I want to say they switched it to 10 or 5 Little Indians. And then that became not okay. Right. So then they changed it to And Then There Were None. I could be totally wrong on the order of that, but I'm pretty sure that's what the deal is. So
interesting.
All right, so that's 2. NF, And Then There Were None.
Oh gosh. Sungazer.
Who's that? That's an artist.
That is it's a band. Well, Adam Neely is the bassist for them. Was the guy I was talking about earlier.
I think you showed me that band.
Yeah, they do. They're like jazz fusion.
Yeah. You showed them to me.
Again, this is just further proving that I really do listen to every genre here.
Right.
Because they'd make jazz fusion in like 11/8 time signatures that are super weird and wonky, and you're like, what the heck am I listening to?
Right.
I just love the creativity there. Then I'd have to give a spot to EKOH.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a man who is completely independent, has no label, and has made millions doing what he does, and having some of the most creative lyrics and flows and comebacks. Very, very, very unique artist.
Right. And how do you spell that?
EKOH. So just
Gotcha.
EKOH phonetically.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that in case anybody wants to look him up.
Definitely.
It's not spelled the way it sounds.
Definitely worth checking out. Very explicit though, so just be forewarned. He's pretty raunchy, but I mean, again, to each their own. Mm-hmm. Man, and then then I have to give a spot to Glasslands.
Oh yeah, Glasslands. Okay.
Glasslands, Demons, bro.
Yeah.
That is a song. Another like mind blowing. Like I did not know music could sound like this type song. Phenomenal, amazing band, horrifically underrated.
Yeah,
like no one talks about Glasslands.
And have you heard the new album yet or no?
I have not. And one of the reasons for that is because my phone broke at work because I'm cursed and everything in my life goes wrong constantly.
You're welcome.
So
when it comes to technology, you get that from
when it comes to everything, bro. I mean, dude, back to back. So I went to get my car fixed, cost $700, and then it still didn't work, and I had to pay more later. And then my phone broke, so I had no phone and no car for like a solid week. So I'm walking to work with no way to communicate to people if I get stabbed or something, which I did. This was when I got mugged. I had no phone, right?
You didn't get stabbed.
No, but sorry.
Which I did.
Sorry.
I'm like, hey, I haven't heard this story yet.
No, but that was when I had to chase out the homeless guy because he was trying to mug me, and I'm not a fan of that. So I don't know. But yeah, I guess it's just the Hester curse, man.
Yeah.
It has bleeded into every aspect of my life.
Well, I know technology for sure.
Yes.
I mean, not all the other stuff for me anyway, but technology, I'm the same. It just will not work. If it's me and technology, something is going to go wrong, guaranteed. So, absolutely 100%. All right, you want to throw a fifth one in there? Can you think of a fifth one? Was that not 5? I think it was 4.
EKOH.
NF, and then there were none.
And then there were none.
EKOH.
Glasslands.
That's 4.
I know I said another one. I thought I said it. What? Okay. Well,
when we were talking about your favorite albums, you mentioned someone else too besides NF. I thought. Can't remember who now.
No, I can't remember either.
I can't remember.
There's a lot of music out there, man.
Yeah.
No. Oh, Sungazer.
Oh, that's right. You did mention Sungazer. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was 5.
Cool.
But yeah, Sungazer. That's a band, man. That is. You have to go into it with a degree in music to understand any of the stuff going on. It's so complicated, but it's so fun. And especially if you show that song, their song Drunk, to someone who has never heard that style of music before, it's hilarious. Everyone's reaction all the time is like, what the heck am I listening to?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that's intriguing to me a lot of times. I mean, depending, I guess if it's not pleasing to my ears, it's not a good experience, but there's a lot of bands that I'll hear, and what draws me to it is like, I've never heard anything like this before.
Exactly.
That was the deal with 21 Pilots. It's like, I've heard rap, I've heard pop, I've heard synth music, I've heard all this. I've never heard them all combined in that way before. Like when I first heard Guns for Hands, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the whole beat changes in the middle of the song. Then he throws this rap in there. Then it goes back to what it was. And I was like, this is just blowing my mind.
Shock factor is such a huge part in leaving an impact, right? Like, I mean, you make a song like Guns for Hands. That seemed like, yes, it's very their style, but I mean, the way that one plays out seems very deliberate. It plays to radio well too. It's very like jarring. When you're just listening to it, you're like, okay, Guns for Hands, yeah, and then all of a sudden they're going, yeah, and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And you're driving to work or whatever, and you're and like all of a sudden you're in a reggae like universe with freaking like dun it like
right.
You're it changes the way your head moves, you know?
Yeah, another example of that I don't know if you've ever heard Sublime, but they had an album, their first album, I believe, called 40 Ounces to Freedom,
You've probably seen his shirt around.
No.
It's got a big mushroom and it's got the... But anyway, the singer died like after their third album came out of an overdose. Ooh. But they were fantastic. But I remember when I was in high school, I had first heard the 40 Ounces to Freedom album, and I was just like, I mean, you talk about a smash of just, I mean, every song, you feel like you're listening to totally different styles, and there's like, they're putting,
that's why it's hard to explain. This is the band you were telling me about, that you're like, this is a band, they have a whole album where every song is different, and I love it because every song is completely different.
If you ever get a chance to check that album out, you should.
Oh, Attalus. That's what I should have put on the top 5. That's a band.
You still can. It's still recording. So.
Okay, well, I mean, it's I guess they're number 6.
Yeah.
But
they only had one album too, right?
Yeah. I would actually put them above Sungazer. Sungazer would be number 6 for me.
What was the name of that album?
Into the Sea.
Was this Into the Sea? Yeah, that's a good one.
Attalus, rest in peace to that band, bro.
Did they break up?
Yes, they officially broke up. And
did they go separate ways? I mean, are they doing other musical stuff?
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything from them, at least, which sucks so bad because I'm like, and again, I showed them to my buddies at work, and they're like, "This is awesome."
Yeah,
this is because it's a band where it's like it's a piano ballad, and then suddenly guitars are coming in, and then it's like, and for some reason, despite the fact that it's a rock album, and rock typically makes you think of like, you know, dirty streets in LA or whatever, like, you know, mosh pits, whatever. Somehow in the music, they capture the feeling of being on the ocean.
Right.
I don't understand it. You listen to it and you're with them floating on driftwood through the ocean, which is the whole concept album. I've never heard a concept album where it's carried out in the music. It's not just it's not just like, oh, here are the lyrics, I'm telling a story. It's like, no, you really are there.
Right.
And
that's one of the only albums that I can think of that I never want to listen to just one track.
You have to listen to the whole thing through.
I have to go beginning to end with that one, even though it's like 75 minutes long. It's like this totally long, it's like the most space you could fit onto a CD.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just so good. I mean, just starting with, like you said, with that kind of piratey piano thing and then going into the rock.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
The
really
album
good.
itself is a journey that has a very clear beginning to end. And I mean, again, like all concept albums, the story is a little ambiguous, but it still has a very clear arc, right? Like you have your beginning, which is like they're them floating on the ocean, whatever, they're going out to sea, and then you start out with sirens, and it's like, oh, crap's about to get real, like stuff's about to go down, and then all of a sudden, I think the next one's, oh man, what's the next song? I don't remember, but just phenomenal album. That's all to say about that. Just phenomenal.
I'm glad you brought that up because I almost kind of forgot about that.
Well, it was you saying, like, talking about having all the different genres in one album. I mean, again, every single one of their songs, you go from Sirens, which is hard rock, screamy, into like a slower acoustic one, and then you got Albatross, which is just a straight up piano ballad, and like. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, no, I want to go listen to that album.
I'm gonna listen to it later for sure.
So let's, because this will bleed into the political stuff. Let's end by talking about Tom MacDonald.
Okay.
The rapper Tom. Did you ever check out any of the stuff that I had sent you, or?
Yes, I checked out a couple of them. I'm gonna be honest with you. I
hope so. That's what we're here for, man.
This day and age, with everything going on in the political world. I can't. I feel like Tom MacDonald is doing more harm than good with what he's doing. I'm going to be honest, and it's not. I understand what he's trying to do, and I appreciate him for that. But I do follow him on TikTok. I don't just listen to his music. I see him on socials. I see the stuff he says outside of that. And admittedly, a lot of it is very problematic and not researched well. Like he'll make statements that are very rednecky and American.
Can you give an example?
Not off the top of my head, but I mean, if you give me like 5 seconds, I could pull one up, because there's a. Oh, I sent it to you. There was a video.
Oh yeah,
the dude doing a breakdown.
I responded to a lot of that. I think that guy was taking. And that's why I was asked for specific examples, because I think that guy was taking a lot of what Tom said out of context. That's not what he said. A lot of the stuff the guy was saying, and he'd keep pausing and say, and Tom says this. I'm like, that's not what he said. That's what you think he meant by what he said, but that's not what he said.
Okay, you know? I'd have to rewatch it, and now it's not exactly a good time to do that. But
no,
typically,
but just in general,
where I'm at with Tom MacDonald. Okay, so I don't want to say I'm a fan, because I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm really not. I really feel like he's doing more harm than good, even in the music scene itself, not even counting politics. In the music scene, he's doing a lot to further stigmatize himself and
other rappers who have the same beliefs but aren't as forward about it.
Right.
What he's doing is he's alienating all of them and making them all. He's like, yep, nope, we're all over here now, and dividing themselves from the rest of the community, which is frankly largely left leaning and is really just not a good marketing scheme. If you're trying to make yourself well known, going the Eminem route really doesn't work anymore. And Tom MacDonald has, in my opinion, dug himself a hole and made himself a name in all the wrong ways. He's infamous. He's not famous. He's infamous.
Right, but at the same time, I don't think he would not be as famous as he is. I mean, he wouldn't be making the money that he's making right now if it wasn't for that. Because if you listen to his first maybe 3 albums, I think, it's just your typical straight up hip hop with all about drinking and women and, you know, your typical thing. And then I think it was around the Death Threats album is when he started to get more political. And I think I forgot what the first song that he dropped that was a single that was very political. And he got a lot of hit, people liked it. He got a good response to it.
Sells.
Right. But I mean, what I'm saying is the people that responded the most to, of course, he had the haters get on there and be like, oh, I can't believe he said that. But he also amassed a big group of conservative Americans. So this is what I think is funny about Tom MacDonald. He is not a Christian. His music is profane. He has parental advisory stickers on his albums. He's not like a Christian rapper, nor does he even believe in Christianity. But his views are very conservative. So the Christian conservative community has like latched onto this guy. And you watch, and then like it's like and he knows that. So it's like every album that comes out, he gets a little more edgy in that respect, where he's saying more and more about it. Now, whether or not he really believes all that stuff, I assume so. But I mean, could be he's just doing it to make money. I don't know. But all I know is it wasn't until Death Threats where he really started to get big. And now the homie's like a millionaire, and he's totally self-produced. He's never been on a label. He does it all himself. All the music videos he shoots, his girlfriend shoots for him. They do it all together, and it's like which I admire. Yeah, you know.
No, there's always something to be said. I mean, like I was saying earlier about EKOH. I mean, the man is also completely independent. Yeah, he does everything himself, and with his girl, and he has a team now because he has enough money to do that. But like in the case of Tom, I think the thing I struggle the most with. So I love his song "The System." I will say that, because it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on.
Yeah, because that's just all about the record industry, right?
It's about society, and like you're born into this. Welcome to the world, baby boy. I'll paint you red, white, and blue. Like I'm gonna make you into this patriotic. Like this is who you're gonna be. Like it's decided for you before you're born. But I always get to the section where he says the men turn into women and you fight for them again. I mute it because I have it playing on speakers and my friend's trans and on the other aisle. So I always mute that spot because I'm like, that's something you shouldn't make an issue. And that's honestly, I think that's the biggest problem I have with him is he's been openly transphobic and anti-LGBT and anti all these things.
Well, see, I would disagree with you.
There's no disagreeing with it when he comes out on TikTok saying all these things.
But does he say I'm anti-LGBT and I'm transphobic?
No. Who's going to say that?
Well, hang on. Bear with me for a second, though, because that's my point. So if somebody comes out and they say this, they make this statement. I don't believe that a trans woman is a woman, right? Let's say somebody makes that statement. Okay. The natural response to that is he's transphobic and he hates the LGBT community. Do you see what I'm saying? But that could not be true, because I'm going to tell you, I would make that statement too. But I love trans people. I don't hate trans people. I don't hate the gay community. I'm not transphobic or any of that stuff. Not at all.
Well,
I just think that that's a scientific fact.
Well, I have a question for you then.
Okay.
What does transphobic mean to you?
That's a great question, because I've always hated the phobic. Because phobic means scared.
Yeah.
It's a phobia. You're scared of something, which I think is dumb. I understand transphobic means that you don't like the trans community, maybe, or you're against the trans community. I think that's the way it's used. But I don't think that means they're scared of the trans. Like they see a trans person coming, like, oh, run away.
No,
I'm so scared of the trans person.
That's
like,
fair.
I don't think that's what it's like. Homophobic, same thing. I don't think people who are homophobic are scared of gay people.
No, but it's the same way. A phobia. When I hear phobia, I think more. It makes me think more being uncomfortable. So I'm like, I guess I'm going to use kind of an out there example and try to tie it back in a little bit, but. Sure. you don't see, like, it doesn't take a murderer saying, I'm a murderer, to be a murderer. It's like, if he still killed someone, he is by definition a murderer. So
his action makes him that.
I would argue, and this isn't me trying to call you a transphobe specifically. We can just make this about Tom, but like we just pin it all on him. In this
but
moment.
you'll say that.
But he's not going to listen to this. I don't care. But no, I mean. And again, this is something too. He's entitled to believe all this stuff. For the record, I'm not saying he's not. This is something you'll find out about me. Is I very much. Everyone is completely entitled to their own belief. If you want to believe that gay people are burning in hell forever, go for it. That's
right, but
fine.
if you believe that, does that make you homophobic?
No.
Is the question.
But what does make you homophobic is when you make statements. In my opinion, if you make statements like I believe that. So, like, I don't believe a trans woman is really a woman. Mm-hmm. That statement is transphobic.
How so?
It's literally, so you're taking someone else, so you're taking someone else's entire worldview and invalidating it in that statement. This person, to them, in their own head, which is his own debate we've talked about yesterday too, like, they are a woman. They have become a woman, or always were, and were stuck in a man's body.
I would agree with that.
Convert,
I would agree with that. In their mind, they truly, fully believe that they are. a woman. So I would agree.
And so you're a Christian, yes?
Yeah.
So if I were to be like, I don't really believe that Ryan's a Christian. Mm-hmm. If I were to start saying that, you'd kind of start to get a little miffed, right? Because it's like, well, no, I am a Christian. What the heck?
Yeah.
Like,
so what I would do then is I would start to. Well, depending on how much I cared. Like if it was somebody that was really interested.
Well, let's
in
say it was someone you respected and knew. Let's say it was like, I don't know, someone. Oh, let's just say it was me. Yeah. We'll throw that out there. Like,
yeah. So if it's you, and you're in your mind, you're believing I'm not a Christian. Mm-hmm. So what I would do at that point, first of all, I would see if you're even interested in hearing my explanation of why I am. If you're not, I'm not going to waste my time. Mm-hmm. If you are, then I'm going to start explaining to you what the definition of a Christian is. And how I fit that definition.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
I guess that's fair. But I think...
Or maybe not. Maybe I don't line up to that definition. Then I would walk away and say, well, man, you're right. I guess I'm not a Christian.
Like,
all this time I thought I was, but I guess I'm not.
I guess it's more like... how do I explain this, man? This is a hard one to try to make a metaphor work.
I wanted to use this example yesterday, and these examples it's the concept that I'm comparing. I'm not comparing the two things as if they're the same. Okay. I need to say that fresh off the bat. But an example that Ben Shapiro uses that I like is he talks about how his grandfather was schizophrenic, believed the TV was talking to him.
Yeah.
And telling him to do
I've
things.
I've heard this clip.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he says,
so you give in.
There's two options here. We can affirm grandpa and tell him, yes, you're right. The TV is actually talking to you, and you should do whatever it tells you to do because it's real. It's all true. Or we can take him down and get him, which is what they did with his grandfather. They got him lithium, I think is what he said. Mm-hmm. Grandfather got him lithium. TV stopped talking to him, and he was able to live the rest of his life normally, right? Now, I know that's not the best example when we're talking about the trans community, but my whole point is, if what we're dealing with, and again, this is love. I'm loving on these people. If it truly is some kind of a mental, I know disorder is not a popular word when we're talking about this.
It's a fair statement.
It's something.
It's called gender dysphoria.
Yes,
it is
exactly.
A disorder.
It's a confusion.
At the end of the day, it really is.
Yeah, and I like gender confusion. I like that term because I'm in no way saying that. Like we've talked about before, I'm not saying these people are lying or that they're trying to be who they're not really. I mean, if they truly are gender dysphoric, then they have a condition that they really do believe that they are the opposite gender than what they were born as.
I think though, so even taking that into account, okay, so we say, so even with the understanding that scientifically speaking, it is technically considered a disorder, right? Right. It is technically considered, like, gender dysphoria is a mental illness to a certain extent. This is not, for the record, people, this is not me saying I'm 100% an ally. I promise you in every way, shape, or form that I'm just talking purely scientifically here.
Right.
But so even using that, let's just say that's the truth, right? It is a disorder. It is that. So why why has that not been integrated into society the way other mental disorders have been? And instead, it has been openly mocked. It has been openly stereotyped against, and people have been, I mean, I've been in literal fights with people defending some of my friends over this. I've like, I mean, I got a black eye, bro. Like, we're talking like actual fights, and like, this is a real thing. I've seen people get beat up for their sexuality, and I've seen people get harassed and persecuted. Like again, a homie I work with who's trans, he's constantly having to deal with going in to being sexualized, which is weird for him because he's mentally a dude in a woman's body and is being like openly sexualized, and people are flirting with him when he's like, I'm a dude, what are you doing? This is weird and gross, and I have a partner. Like, what go away, right? Like,
so my first response to that would be like, any of that harassment, hatred, evil being thrown any of those people's way is, in my opinion, totally wrong 100%. No one should ever be mistreated. I don't care what they believe about themselves. I don't care how they dress. I don't care what they look like. You should never be mistreated. But to answer your question, you said, how come it hasn't been integrated into society the way like
ADHD and
correct.
ADD, these things that exist that are, yes, they're disorders, yes, they affect people's perception of reality, but it's not to the extreme where you need to send them into like a home or something, or they don't need like that kind of treatment, right? It's something that is like, okay, we can integrate this into society. It's just part of who I am now. Like, I mean, for example, I'm ADHD, if that's not obvious. Like, I'm very, very, very ADHD. Right. And like, I'm still able to function. It's not like I'm, but I would almost rather, if say world peace where everyone just accepts people for being trans as trans, that's never going to happen. I know that there will always be some redneck out there who's upset about it, but I would almost rather have the polar opposite where everyone is constantly being persecuted for that, because at least then that way it would all be equal and all of us would be dealing with it, and then eventually it would stop because we would all be tired of it and be like, wait, why are we all giving each other crap for all of our different mental disorders? Why does it matter? Why can't we let the dude be a dude? Why can't we let the girl be a girl? Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. As
I was saying yesterday, and I've said on this podcast before, if that's where it stops, I don't have any problem with it at all.
Me too. Yeah, no. And
if someone wants to believe that they are Mahatma Gandhi, great, go for it. I don't care. But if I'm being told that I have to address and live my life as if that person is Mahatma Gandhi, that's when I have a problem. So that's where I think it becomes my problem, because I'm a live and let live guy. I'm like, do you do your thing? Fine. You believe you want to be that and you want to live your life as a woman, even if you're biologically male. It's a free country. I support your right to do so. But I should also have my rights supported to say, I don't think that is actually a woman.
Okay. So you are a new student at a school. You go in, teacher introduces herself for the first time as, I'm Mrs. Whitaker. Sure. Yeah. The random name I just pulled out.
It's a good one. It's a good name.
Yeah, Whitaker. I like it. But so she's like, my name's Mrs. Whitaker. And you start calling her Miss Whitaker. And she gets upset at you. Right. Is that valid? Sure. Because she told you, my name is Mrs. Whitaker, and you start calling her a name that isn't what she gave.
Well, I mean, if it was a constant problem, and it was like, let's say if I was doing it to be a jerk, like, I know she's Mrs., but I'm going to keep calling her Miss just to tick her off, you know?
It's one. Okay, actually, that fits really well into where I was going with this.
Good.
It's one thing to, I know, right? One of my metaphors actually making sense for once.
Yeah. Well, no, I know where you're going with it.
But like, so there's.
But the problem is both the pronouns you just used are both feminine.
Okay, but why is there a distinction there? Why does it matter if someone comes up to me and is like, first off, so one thing, like, this is a recent discovery for me personally, is I realized I'm pansexual, which essentially to me means I don't care about gender at all. It does, like, the concept of gender is completely irrelevant to me. I do not care. Like, as long as I am happy with whoever I'm with, I'll be happy with that. So what that means is when I meet someone, I'm not thinking this is a guy. Oh, this is a girl. Oh, this person's gay. I can tell just by looking at them. I don't think that at all. I'm just like, hello, person. Who are you? What are your pronouns? What do you prefer to go by? Simple like that. As soon as I realized that, because as soon as you ask that question, what do you prefer to go by? You just respect that.
Right.
It's so easy because you don't have, you can still sit there and be like, that's a dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's so clearly a dude.
But you're just saying you should keep it to yourself.
If that's the, yeah. And then I'm not saying I do keep that. I mean, well, let me reword that. I'm not saying that I secretly think that about people, because I don't. But I mean, if you're going to do it.
If you did, you're just saying
if you were that kind of person, I don't understand why this is the part that, frankly, the majority of the right side is fighting against so hard. I'm like, really? It is completely inconsequential to you. It makes no difference to your everyday life in any way to call him a him instead of a her.
You say that, but that's not true. It's inconsequential to you.
What?
But not to them. That's if it wasn't inconsequential, they wouldn't be worried about it.
Okay. Well, what is...
you can't understand why they're worried about it, because to you it's inconsequential.
Then? Because you always talk about this huge big picture scheme, right? Where you're like, you're correct me if I'm wrong in this, but your thought is, so if we normalize people being trans, right? Your fear is that it's going to get to a point where someone could identify as a 65-year-old and retire and get retirement money or whatever that works.
My question with that is, what's the difference? Is the question. Because if you go 20, 30 years ago, the same argument would be being made right now as it is that I'm making for the 65-year-old.
So in the case of using time, because this is always the example you go to identifying as a different age. Mm-hmm. The difference there is time is like, there's no arguing against time. There's no one who's able to really like lie about their age. There's no one who's really able to change that. Like, it's obvious when it doesn't. You can, in my opinion on this, is you can identify as whatever you want. If you want to identify as an Apache attack helicopter, go for it.
Yeah.
But that's where you have to kind of step back and be like, okay, most people just aren't going to get this or respect this, so I don't know if I wanted to be announcing that. So if that's how you feel, I'm sorry, stay in the closet. Like, I'm sorry.
Right, but is it only based on society? Like, so fast forward 30 years, and let's say it's totally accepted that many, many people have started identifying as Apache helicopters. Okay.
I love that example.
Yeah. Let's say that's what happens. And now we're 30 years in the future, and it's totally accepted and normal.
Yeah, and everyone's running around.
Yeah, right? So now, so are you saying at that point then society as a whole should completely recognize that, not in the sense of respecting it, but in the sense of actually also believing that's true of these people who believe that about themselves?
I don't know. Honestly, as far as going like that far into the future, my concern isn't with the future. I'm going to be honest. It's really not, because first off, I'm not planning on having kids at all. I have zero desire to. But I also, to a much lesser degree, obviously, because I'm not trans, I know what it's like to wake up every day feeling so uncomfortable in your own skin and feel like everyone else is, because like I have very, very bad social anxiety. So anytime I have any interaction with anybody, it's always, I'm up at night thinking about that conversation and I'm like, oh man, I probably had something smudged on my face. Oh man, my smile's weird, my laugh's weird, my everything's weird. And so I'm like, I imagine, and again, I'm not trans, so I can't say this, but like for certain, but I imagine it's something similar to that, just times a million. Right. Because you wake up every day in a body that basically feels like it's not yours. And it feels like and again, a lot of this is going off of what I've been talking to this friend with about with this whole situation. Is he was even saying he's like I hate coming into work because I feel like everyone's seeing someone that's not me. I feel like everyone is looking at this person, and he was even saying, he's like, I look in the mirror sometimes, and he's like, yeah, she's pretty, but she's not me. I'm in here. Like the same with you. Your entire personality is completely defined by your worldview. Always. Everything you ever process in your brain is going through that filter, right?
Right.
So this is why I try so hard to be very, very like non-confrontational about this kind of thing, is because I'm like, they're viewing the world through their own lens. Right. I'm going to leave that alone. Right. But when it comes to this, I'm like, it's getting to a point where it's not leaving them alone. Like a lot of times people being like, kind of where you're at, where you're in this kind of in between where you're like, yeah, I don't hate them. I'm not going to actively persecute them, but the notes are concerning me, bro.
No, go ahead. I just don't want to forget to address some of this.
But dang, I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought. The dog distracted me and threw me off.
Way to go, Misty. Well, a couple things. I want to say that when you were talking a minute ago about, I'm not saying that we should, as people from my understanding, my perspective on this topic, should be purposely going around and razzing and harassing. And if we know someone is trans and that they are a biological woman who identifies as a man, I'm not saying that we should follow those people around and call them her. Hey, she, hey, her, haha. Okay. Hey, you're a woman. I mean, that's harassment, and I'm totally against that completely. Okay. But if we're in a setting and I'm being asked to see, I'm also non-confrontational with it, to where I wouldn't even do it. I would try to avoid even using a pronoun. I would use the person's name, whatever their name is, and even if it's a masculine name or a feminine name, whatever that means. I mean, that can be lots of different things. There's many names that are both genders, and that's totally fine. If someone's name was literally King Kong and they went by King Kong, that's what I would call them. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I would just avoid it altogether, because I have kind of a dilemma to where, from my perspective, if I'm calling a biological woman he, that's a lie. From my perspective, I understand from their perspective it's not, right? But that gets back to something else that I was going to address a minute ago when you were talking, is that the problem is that, so words have meaning. And words need to have meaning, because if words have no meaning, then we can't mean anything by our words. Yeah. Right? So is it, and I'm throwing this out there to you as a question to you, do you think that, would it be so bad just to simply have men, women, trans men, trans women? Because if we use those four terms and whatever other ones are in the middle, non-binary, all those other different ones, because then at least when we're using that wording, we all know what we mean. If we all say trans woman, we know that we're referring to a biological male who now identifies as a woman, and vice versa.
So I was talking with said friend about this exact thing the other day, and I am of the belief. So I refer to him as a trans man until, and this is probably not PC, but this is just my own personal belief, until the hormones are there. Until they've actually started the physical transformation process. I say transformation because that's what it is. And like, until that happens, I don't care about bottom surgery. That's not what's important. It has to do with, as like right now, he's a trans man to me. Once the hormones are there, he's just a dude. That's it. End of story. I'm not even thinking about it twice.
So hormones are more gender oriented than genitalia, is what you're saying?
Yes, because what defines a gender to me is the mentality behind it. Is because you know the whole thing where it's like men have a waffle brain, women have a spaghetti brain. It's the same concept. I mean, this is someone who's going from having a spaghetti brain into having a waffle brain. So that's what makes a distinction between man and woman to me, is that mentality,
their thought process,
the thought process of it. And
is that actually, so that's fascinating. I never thought about that. Is that actually what happens when someone gets hormone therapy to transition from a male to a female? Do all of a sudden they start multitasking and they start they seen the spaghetti thing where everything's interconnected as opposed to the boxes?
So yes and no. It takes a long time, if I understand correctly.
But it does happen therapy, eventually.
In some cases, again, this is something we were talking about yesterday too. Man, I feel bad for the people listening. We had a long conversation about this yesterday too. But there was. It's not a perfect science yet. This is all new. This is all making this a surgery that just anybody can get is new.
Right.
So it's not a perfect science. And I mean, you look at how far science has come. We're getting to the point where they're literally talking about Neuralink now, which is putting a freaking chip in someone's brain so they can control their phone with their brain. If you could control your phone with your brain, bro, that's so cool.
Does that scare you?
Oh, absolutely, man. Because Musk gets his chips in all of our brains, bro. He's going to set them off and like just
well, even without
wipe out half the population.
Just the idea of that is frightening to me.
No, because I trust technology to a certain extent. I don't like one of the sad truths of reality, and this people can disagree with me on this. That's fine. Everything is advertising. Everything. Every single movie you watch is pushing advertisement. Every single YouTube video you watch is pushing advertisement. Like it's a creator pushing their website or their product, their merch, whatever. It's ads playing on YouTube. It's Facebook algorithms dictating everything you see. It's all of these different things. It's completely controlled by algorithms and advertisements, and it's all just a loop just to get your money. That's all the internet is. That's all anything is anymore. So when it comes down to them offering these new technologies of being like, oh yeah, you can have smart glasses with these things on. I'm okay. Like, yeah, I'm going to wear the smart glasses. I'll be driving and get a pop-up ad while driving and be like, oh great. Or in the case of the Neuralink, I'm like, I don't want a metal chip in my head. Are you insane?
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, call me a redneck, but like, I don't, that's not for me, man. If people want to do it, go for it. I'm curious to see what the technology is going to be like. I'm just not going to be patient zero.
Right. Wait 30 years.
I'm waiting until they come out with like the Neuralink 4 or something, you know?
Well, it's like the whole self-driving Tesla cars, right? And people are like, oh, that's the greatest thing ever. I said, dude, I don't care how much honestly, personally speaking, we could go 50 years of people using those without a single accident. I'm still not using those.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, because
I'm not setting the thing for a 5-hour drive and going to sleep in the back. This is not going to happen.
Yeah, no, again, though, because it's all linked through Google, which is a super corporation that is just run by a bunch of rich white guys who are just there to get your money. And so it's like, yes, all this technology and advancement and stuff is all so cool. The algorithms are dope. AI is more advanced than it's ever been and just getting better every day. But all of it is just a way to get your money. That's all it is. It all comes back around. Right. I mean, even, I guess, speaking of those AI things, I paid $20 for it to have an account on that website. So they're taking my money. That's all it is. And that's all the internet has become. And I know that wasn't the original question. I'm just ranting about this now.
That's all right. I don't remember what the original question was either.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. But
so what you're saying is it's hard to trust these places because it's all a money grab. It's all about.
So let me just put it this way. So okay. So first off, to clarify, yes, Amazon was listening to everyone's conversations. This is just known now.
Even this one.
Yeah, I know. They're listening right now.
Yes.
Man, it's almost like there's a whole audience listening to us right now. It's insane. Like a whole 20 people that are going to stream this entire conversation.
Maybe 20.
On all different streaming platforms.
Maybe we'll have 20 by the time this episode comes out. Because this will be number 10 when it comes out. So. So Amazon came out and said they were listening to people's conversations. But, so yes, the technology definitely exists. But it's just scientifically speaking, it is physically impossible for anyone to keep more, like that much data. Think about every single person that has a smartphone. If they were listening to every single person 24/7, we are talking like billions of terabytes of data every second. Right.
There's no computer in the world in existence that can hold that much data. Like, it's impossible.
Well, don't they set them to look for keywords though, not necessarily record everything?
Which, if that's the case too, though, I mean, even then, how it's the English language. Like, even just going in the U.S. alone. Okay, so you got the English language. There's only so many words. People are going to be saying that all the time. So every second, you're talking like billions of terabytes of data.
Right.
Like sound bites. I mean, again, one of the issues I had when editing this podcast was how big the audio files get.
Right.
And I mean, when I say big, I mean, the first episode you sent me was like 30 gigabytes that I had to compress down to kilobytes. Yeah. So, which is why it's a little choppy. I'm sorry. But
you just wanted to get that out there.
I did want to get that out there. That was your
apology.
That was my apology for the sound quality on the first one. I'm sorry. This one is hopefully going to be much better with.
Oh, you'll probably make this one the best one there is.
Yeah, I'm going to tweak
polish this thing up so nice.
I'm gonna Man, it's gonna sound crystal.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just gonna be shiny.
You're gonna go through and edit out all of your bad arguments and keep all my bad arguments in. That way, it sounds like you're a genius and I'm a moron.
No, I came into this knowing that I was gonna sound like an idiot no matter what I said. So
I come into all of them like that.
But it's okay. It's just two idiots and a microphone. But and going back to what I was saying though about Neuralink and all that stuff, like I already know like they're totally capable of tracking my phone. Okay, I'm not putting something in my head, my skull. You know, the thing that is permanently there forever.
Right.
I'm not giving anybody the ability to do that. Plus, if there's any form of, which I mean, Neuralink, the whole point is it's wireless technology, right? Anything wireless can be tapped into.
Right.
I know this. I took programming classes. I know how easy it is to crack these things. I'm like, I'm not putting that in my face, bro. Like, no way.
Yeah.
So, again, I think the concept's cool. Like, one of the things they're talking about is it's just, like, you'll walk up to a lock and it'll just unlock the door for you, and you'll just like have like all these smart locks and stuff in your house.
See, that's scary to me. I don't like that.
No, because because all it's doing is putting out so it's just broadcasting this code, right? That's like, oh, this is the code to unlock this door.
Yeah.
All it takes is someone with a smartphone and a couple of programs to be like, okay, let's just run through all the numbers in existence until we find that code. Boom, access to your car, credit card, door, everything. Your head, they can hack you and turn your, I don't know if they'll be able to like turn your face off or something.
Hack your head off.
Well, yeah, that's right.
And then use that.
They carry it around just like unlocking doors with it, like holding it by the hair.
But I mean, that aside, that's just not even assuming that the possibility of the technology messing up.
Yeah, no, and that's something, we're making everything so reliant on the internet, which is frankly ancient technology at this point. The internet we have now is still being built off of the same servers it was in the beginning. Back when like oh my gosh, like Windows 95 era stuff is still a thing and still being used. Like the government stuff is not high tech, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. They have their server rooms are gigantic, not because they have a lot of data, it's because they have so many old things that are like back in the day, to hold a terabyte, you had a disk that was the size of a record. Like they have all those there. Man. But yeah, all it takes, dude. One day the internet will be gone. This is just a fact. Okay? Like people need to accept that the internet.
What's going to be in its place?
I don't know, but because I probably won't be around that long, and like I don't think any of us will. But assuming the planet doesn't explode for another 100 years, the internet will die, and honestly, America will be gone too by then. I stand by that. The United States is going under in the next 50 years.
It's going to sink into the ocean.
Yep.
Or is it going to be? You think it's going to be gone, or it's going to be overrun by some other country?
It's going to be. So Civil War II is happening in my lifetime. I promise you that. The Second Civil War, and it is going to promise. I know.
This is on tape.
Man. I know. I guarantee that within the next 50 years that a second Civil War will happen, and it will be between right and left, because that's the point it's getting to. We're about to have a war already. Like, we haven't even started this 50-year period I'm talking about. Could you imagine how bad it's going to be if it keeps along the same trajectory?
Yeah.
And then so that's going to happen. And then Russia's just sitting there with their finger on the trigger. Like, they're ready to blow us up. They have been forever. And
why haven't they?
Well, because we're going to destroy them. I mean, this is something I read about the other day. If they send a single nuke over, we have enough to wipe out the entire country in under an hour.
Yeah.
Like, Russia will just not be on the map anymore. So that's why. But all it takes, as soon as we have enough political discourse going on, we're at a weak point. This is a hot take. Our military is the weakest it's ever been. The majority of, like, I have a bunch of friends who are all military people now. And, well, I shouldn't say friends. Most of them aren't. And they're all a bunch of clowns. I'm like, these are the people defending our country? Are you kidding me? Like, I wanted to be there, but I can't because of my heart thing. They wouldn't let me enlist. So, but I look at the majority of the people there now, the majority of the people I know there at least, they're all complete idiots.
Well, let me ask you a question then that'll circle back, to use your term, to the trans thing in a sense. Not just the trans thing, but there was a thing a couple months ago where I want to say it was a Biden thing. And I forgot the name of the military guy that was involved, but
it was the whole idea that they were going to try to make sure that the military was more inclusive. They were going to have more trans people in the military, more gay people in the military, and first of all, let me say, I have no problem with trans people or gay people deciding that they want to serve in the military. That's totally fine, no problem. But when you're doing a thing where you're saying, okay, well, we have a quota to fill here. We need a certain amount of gay people. We need a certain amount of trans people. And you're kind of getting people just for that reason that aren't really wanting to serve in the military per se. And maybe they're using tactics like, hey, as a trans person, join the military, we'll give you a $50,000 signing bonus or whatever. I'm not saying that's what they did. But if they did,
probably did, though.
Maybe something similar, and if they do that, then my problem with that is now you have a whole bunch of people in the military that don't really want to be there, that aren't really called to that. They're not really there for the right reasons. And to me, that's the kind of thing that's going to weaken our military.
Yes.
When our main focus for our military is not who can do the best job in the military, but who fits a certain prescription that we're trying to fill. It's the same thing as Biden saying, when I pick a vice president, it's going to be a black woman. Mm-hmm. Right. I have no problem with the vice president being black or being a woman. I have no problem with that at all. I have a problem with someone being chosen. Well, that's aside. But I have a problem with someone being chosen simply because of those two things. Right.
That's what I was gonna
because
get to.
That doesn't mean that they're the best person for the job. You don't even care. You're looking for this specific criteria, and maybe she sucks at the job. In this case, I think she does. But it's not because she's black and she's a woman. It's got nothing to do with any of that.
It's not relevant
It's
at all.
because I listen to her and I watch what she's doing, and I'm not a fan. She could just easily be a white man saying and doing the same things, and I would have the same problem.
Yeah.
So
that's what I tell people. It's like I don't have a problem with. Kamala Harris was a huge debate actually I got into like a couple weeks ago.
With somebody that likes her?
Yeah, someone who's very much a supporter. Be like, oh, she's great, isn't she? She's so funny on socials. I was like, that's what you're looking for?
Yeah, see?
In a vice president,
Right.
someone who's funny on socials? Then we should nominate Markiplier, bro, to be the next president. Do it. Like, I mean, if that's your criteria, vote for him, right? What's stopping you? If that's your only thing you care about. So going back to the trans people in the military thing, frankly, that's idiotic. Whenever they say stuff like that, they're like, oh, we have a quota to fill. We have to make sure and when workplaces do this now too. I mean, Home Depot is one of these companies that does that. I should bleep that out that I work there. But
we'll take it out later.
I don't understand why they're talking about like, oh my gosh. It's so stupid.
It's irrelevant.
So irrelevant. It's like you look for someone who's going to be good at the job.
Right.
End of story. It doesn't matter if they're a woman. It does not matter if they're a man. It does not matter if they identify as a tree. As long as they're good at the job, that is all that matters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And this is where, honestly, this is why, I'm going to have to lean into work a little bit here, but my old boss, I loved him for this, was he did not care if we would like go outside and smoke or something. Like at work, not weed, but like just like smoke or like on inside even. We would all hit our vapes in the job because he was like, it doesn't hurt anybody because you're sitting alone on the aisle. And he's like, as long as you are doing your job well and not getting distracted, yeah, you can be on your phone. Yeah, you can play whatever music you want. As long as at the end of the day, the job's done.
Right, well, especially in your situation, because when you're working, there's no customers in there.
Yeah, no,
so that's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah, and again, I have a unique circumstance in that as well. Like I'm not unique, but it's less than most people.
But it makes sense. So your boss is more concerned with productivity than he is what you look like or what you're doing while you're doing the productivity.
And
because if there was customers, then that would be a totally different thing. It's like you can't be smoking a cigarette while you're working inside Home Depot.
And it's something. I mean, this was a man. He would just smoke cigarettes inside all the time. It was really funny. I have a picture of him. This is not on this phone, unfortunately, but I have a picture of him standing in front of the no smoking sign in the Home Depot with a cigarette and like.
Nice.
Oh man, I miss him, man. That's its own story that I don't want to tell on the recording, but dang.
But yeah, so it's like it's that whole idea that we should be looking for who's going to best run the country. And by the way, in my opinion, this goes from Republican to Democrat.
Yeah.
If I'm listening to the Republican and the Democrat,
And I lean more right. I tend to agree more with the Republicans than I do with the Democrats, even though I don't really hold to either of those two things. But if I'm listening to the debates and I'm watching what they say they're going to do for the country, and the Democrat sounds to me like he's going to be a better leader of the country, I'm voting for the Democrat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, well, I can't vote for him. He's a Democrat. That's idiotic to me. I don't care about your title. I don't care. Like you said, I don't care what your gender is. I don't care what your color is. I don't care about any of that.
It does not matter.
Right.
And this is why, like, I have this is something actually, and this isn't me blaming you for this, but I have very skewed opinions on Barack Obama because like one of the things I remember hearing, I don't know if this was you who said this. I might have been Grandma, actually, but someone who said that he was. You're giving me a look.
No, I was just going to say I will tell you if it was me that said it.
Okay, that Barack Obama was only voted in because he was going to be the first black president. If he was voted in, that's
a very broad statement to make, and by saying something like that, what you're saying is every single person that voted for him for that reason.
Yeah, which I don't believe that.
However, there were many prominent people. For example, Samuel Jackson, the actor, is on TV literally saying the words, "I voted for Barack Obama because he is black." He actually said that. So yes, there are some people that did vote for him because he's black. But I wouldn't go as far as saying that's why he was voted in. I think he was voted in because he's a very dynamic speaker. He's very relatable. Yeah. He comes off as a just kind of a blue collar kind of guy who he gets the people right, and he's a very good speaker. Yeah. Very, very good polished speaker, and I think that really hit a lot of people from a certain camp that wasn't necessarily interested in the policies that he was going to put forward, and it goes back to the whole Joe Biden and Donald Trump thing. It's like, well, we know Trump's a jerk and Trump says really stupid things all the time. And we know this nice old grandpa man. I mean, he's just so nice. He's such a great guy. I mean, look, he likes ice cream. He's playing with his dogs. He's got grandkids that he's walking around with. And then there's this mean, angry orange man who's he's racist. He's homophobic. He's all these things, right? Lord, and I'm not saying any of those things are true about either one of those men. My point is, if we're looking at that stuff instead of the policies that they're going to put in for the country, I think we've completely missed the mark. That's my point.
So for clarification, I consider myself, like, if you want to talk about the political spectrum, right, that implies that there's a middle somewhere. Right. I am pretty much like about a quarter inch right of center, right, I would say. Right. Left of center. Right. Well, depends on the day. But
so you're pretty center.
I'm pretty center. I literally do not care. Republican, Democrat, irrelevant. Right. Completely irrelevant. The fact that political parties exist, irrelevant and stupid to me, an outdated idea that shouldn't even be a thing anymore, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
But it is, and I have to deal with that. But it blows my mind that America was collectively stupid enough to put either of those men in office. Donald Trump is a complete joke of a human. Joe Biden is a complete joke of a human. Both of these people are idiots. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Donald Trump is terrible at any kind of tact. The man is openly rude to people. He on Twitter was a complete nightmare. This man had no filter and no... He couldn't carry himself in a political sense. He didn't even try to make himself look good. He just constantly messed up and then was like, yeah, I did that. What are you going to do about it? Right. So that's why nobody likes him. Right. But also on the flip side, you got Joe Biden, who is, oh my gosh, man will walk off the sidewalk and keep walking in a straight line, even though all the security guys are pointing where to go. Right. Right. Ah, gosh.
Yeah. So this is
how are these people real? How are they real? They exist. There are people. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yes, but I agree with everything you said just now. All of it. Everything you just said about each of those two men, I totally agree with you. However,
I'm lightheaded, bro.
When we start looking at policy, see, this is what I mean. I think we need to separate that, and that's what's so hard for people to do.
Oh, yes.
Like, we need to say, okay, Trump spent 4 years in the White House. Okay, Biden's been in for a little over 2 years now, right?
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Coming up on 2 years.
Coming up on 2 years. I was thinking November was when he was elected, but then January.
Which has just been a great 2 years, hasn't it?
But I mean, so to me, I mean, even if I wasn't going to pick a side and I wasn't going to say this guy's better than this guy, I just think all of us should look at what was done in the term for the 4 years of Trump versus what's been done in the 2 years of Biden. That's the kind of argument I want to hear from somebody. I want to hear somebody make an argument that doesn't involve the words Trump's mean, Trump said something I don't like, Trump hates a person that I like, or Trump said something stupid, or even the other side. Oh, Biden's an old senile dummy, doesn't even know his own name. Fine. Well, that might all be true from both sides of that. But what are they doing in office for the country? That's what I care about. And that's the argument I want to hear for either side from somebody. If they're going to say Biden's better or Trump's better, that's the argument. I want to get rid of all the character traits from each one of them. I don't care. Because first of all, because I agree with almost everybody's assessment of each of them. I would be the first to stand up and say, yes, Trump is a jerk. And I've said it before. Do I think he did some good things for the country? Yes. Would I ever want him to hang out with me and my wife and my children? Never. In a million years. You wouldn't want to have him on as a guest? No, that'd be different. If it was just me and him sitting across from each other having a conversation, yeah, that'd be great. Same with Biden. I'd love to do the same with Biden.
True, that'd be like an 8-hour episode filled with constant silence as he's trying to remember.
Well, he'd have to have a teleprompter up here to tell him what to say.
And he misreads it.
But if Trump called me today and he's like, hey, I want to take you and your family to the zoo. You want to come and hang out with us at the zoo? I'd be like, no, man, sorry, I'm not letting you around my family. It's just not going to happen. But again, that's completely irrelevant to whether or not he can run the country well.
Which is fair. I'm going to be honest. I'm not your guy for that kind of debate. I'm going to be honest because, frankly, it's hard to keep up with what the new policies are because so much stuff is happening all the time. While I'm also trying to balance, living my life and not thinking about politics every day. Right. So it's something I really just kind of go with the people going, "Oh, did you hear that this is a thing now? Oh, really? Gas prices are going up. Cool.
Right.
No one's surprised. Right. Like that's kind of the only real impact I've seen in my everyday life.
Right.
That and they're banning vapes across the country now.
Really?
Yeah. Did you hear about that? So
why vapes and not cigarettes? What's their argument so that those are worse?
It's idiotic is the point I'm getting to because their whole thing is because vapes, and I will admit this, vapes are generally candy flavored or super fruity or something.
Oh, I did hear this.
So
it's
what they're doing,
appealing to kids is what they're saying.
Exactly. Is they're saying it's appealing to kids, which is fair. And the packaging, in a lot of cases, does appeal to a younger audience. But at the same time, I'm like, this is a generation that honestly, most of us are still like the people who vape are still just coming out of high school, right? We're in our 20s. So we're going to go for the gummy bear flavored one,
right?
Because we're still a kid mentally, right? And it's like, it's something, I mean, I know you don't vape or smoke or anything. I do. And
because I'm smarter than you are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. but so what they're doing now, instead of just, because here's the thing, if they're going to do something, just enforce that they change the packaging. Done. Problem solved. Everything fixed by January or whenever they want it. But instead what they're doing is they're banning all flavored vapes, but tobacco vapes are still around, which are way worse for you, by the way.
Right.
Menthol vapes, which are way worse for you. So it's like, okay, so now all these high school kids who are now hooked on nicotine, they're going to resort to the more dangerous stuff that is more likely to put glass in their lungs and kill them.
Right.
Like, that's the part I'm concerned about because I'm like, now you're actively pushing and cigarettes now. I could be wrong about this. I believe they banned menthol cigarettes entirely, which again doesn't make any sense because menthol vapes are still a thing. It's idiotic.
It's all political. I'm sure there's reasons they're not saying behind.
I want to see them because for me, man, I'm not going back to tobacco vapes, man. They're so bad.
Hey, get this, dude. When I was a kid, you can go into any liquor store and get what looked like a pack of cigarettes, and you pull one of them out, and inside was like a long piece of gum.
I've seen those.
You put this in your mouth, and you kind of make a puff with your mouth, and there's like powdered sugar or something in there that would come out and look like smoke. And this was candy. They were candy cigarettes when I was like in elementary school.
And I'm like, this is what was being marketed to kids.
Wild.
It's like, here, let's get them started when they're 10 years old. That way, when they're a little bit older, they'll go to the actual real cigarettes. They'll get used to smoking these candy cigarettes.
See, that I disagree with. That is definitely advertising it to kids. But I'm like, the situation with the vapes, I'm like, they make it. I mean, they. We're recording. How do I?
What are you trying to avoid?
Outing myself for buying them at a younger age than I should have.
Oh.
But
just don't say the name of the store that sold them to you.
Yeah. Okay. So even going in like without an ID or whatever, or not being legally old enough, it's not really easy to do. You would have to like for me, I would have to go in with some buddies who were all that age and be like, and have them just tell them beforehand, be like, hey, here's the flavors I want. Can you just grab these? I'd hand them cash, wait in the car and stuff like that. Or it's already not easy to do. Like that is, you have to go with another person. You have to set up this thing. You have to have friends who are over 21. You have to, like, in order to make that happen, it's already hard enough for a kid to get a hold of a vape, period. I don't see why they're messing with it. It's not a broken system. It's really not. Yes, I think that the majority of kids are smoking it way too young.
Right.
But once you're past 18, it doesn't matter. Nicotine, I have such a love-hate relationship with nicotine. I'm going to be real. And I think that's just kind of the nature of it.
Yeah.
So or with vaping, I should say, because like the nicotine isn't the appeal of it for me. It's the act of smoking it, the feeling of it going in and out the lungs is really nice. And relaxing, but I
just thought of that Brad Stein skit where he's
smooth,
smooth taste, smooth. Because when I think lung full of smoke, I think smooth. You see people coming out of a burning building like, what was that like? Smooth.
But well, honestly, vaping is
right,
though it really is,
which is the point of it. It's supposed to be
it's
easier on the lungs.
Yeah, and it's something. Honestly, it doesn't cause cancer in the same ways
that they know of. This is still a new thing.
Yeah.
There's really no long-term data on that yet.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I'm
back when cigarettes came out, they didn't cause anything either, and they didn't find out until years later.
And they're all in their 60s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. But I have such a love-hate relationship with it because it's like, my opinion on this is I feel like everybody should hit 3 benchmarks in their life at one point. Everyone should smoke at least one cigarette or hit a vape or something, have something nicotine related, so they understand it. Because it is an experience. The first time you hit a vape, you're relaxed. Like you're sitting there for like 10 minutes, like, whoa.
But do you think there's a problem, before you get to the other 2 benchmarks, do you think there's a problem with saying that everyone should do that the one time? So let's say they do that the one time and they're so relaxed and they want to do it again and then again and again and then they're addicted to nicotine. So do you think that's an issue?
It's something I think nicotine is very easily regulated. You can regulate it very easily. I am not a good example of this because I naturally have an addicted personality and I leaned into it harder than I should.
They say nicotine is more addictive than heroin.
So, and this comes down to my opinion on this, and I know it's not necessarily backed by science or anything stupid like that, but
as none of the best opinions are.
No.
I mean, you know.
but like nicotine is something that you like. It's sort of a shortcut to being able to de-stress, right? Like you're in a room full of people, you're super stressed out, your anxiety's through the roof. You take a step outside, and maybe if you have a couple smoking buddies, you go out there, you talk about it real quick. You all take a hit, you're chilling. That moment, that bond between those guys, it does not matter. So you know, earlier I was talking about how I got in a fight at work dealing with the trans situation. That same week with the same dude after this happened, we had a smoke break together and we were chilling.
The guy you were in a fight with?
Yes, the guy who punched me in the face. Like, we still were able to sit there and smoke together and talk about life like nothing had happened.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is the answer to all the world's problems is everyone needs to smoke cigarettes.
If everybody smoked, bro, no, because really, genuinely, that bond is insane. How it transcends everything. Said trans friend was there. We were all there with this dude who we had literally, like, I'm not going to go into the story. It doesn't matter right now. But, like, it made it so, like, it makes it so much easier to connect with other people of that same mindset. It really does. And so this is why I say I think everyone should at least try it. Because if you smoke and you're like, oh, I don't like the feeling of that. I don't like that, because it's not necessarily relaxing to everybody. Some people, it triggers them. They're like, oh, I hate this. Like, I feel all tingly. I don't like it. But like, and that's valid. They can feel that way, and that's totally fair. But I think it's something that everyone at least once in their life should do, as well as have a couple drinks, like get buzzed, not necessarily drunk, but get buzzed. So they're like, okay, so if they ever have to deal with someone who's drunk, they're like, okay, this is how they see it. This is how they see what's going on right now. So this is how I should communicate to someone who is drunk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, because you alter your own worldview to be like, oh, okay, so this is what they're seeing. I get it now.
Right.
And the same with smoking weed. It's the same thing. That's the third benchmark for me. Is everyone should smoke that at least once, because I am not big on weed. I'm really not.
So someday, if you have children, your advice to your son is going to be, son, make sure, if I could give you any advice in life, make sure that you have at least one cigarette, one joint, and you get buzzed off alcohol at least once in your life.
So I'm realizing the more I talk that me in like 5 years is going to listen back to this and be like, I disagree with everything I said. But keep in mind, I'm 20. I'm a dumb kid.
But I don't
know what I'm talking about.
That's what's fun.
Be back in season 2 and be like, everything in episode 1 was terrible. I hated it.
Yeah, but I mean, so for me, everything you're saying, I totally understand what you're saying. I disagree with you, but I do understand the point you're making. But to me, I feel like all of those things, what they end up becoming is they become to a person who does those things, they become the solution to life's problems.
Yeah,
I'm stressed. I need a cigarette. I'm stressed. I need to go out and have some drinks with the guys, with the friends.
Yeah.
And then that becomes your crutch in a sense, right? That's where you go to with for your problems, and I think that's most people, and that's what ends up happening, and that's where alcoholics come from. That's where people addicted to nicotine come from. That's where people addicted to hard drugs come from. It's the same thing, because they're like, okay, when I'm doing whatever, heroin, meth, whatever it is, whenever I'm doing this, my life's problems all melt away.
Yeah.
And then I come down off this drug. Of course, my life problems are all still there. They didn't really go anywhere. It's just that this drug helps me not worry about them for a time. So, so it's a temporary fix. It's not an actual fix. So
I think the best example out of the 3 I gave for what you're talking about, I would say, is weed. I mean, I have friends with a lot of stoners. I mean, again, I dabbled a little bit. I get it. I understand what it's like to be sufficiently high. And I think like with anything, and even any hobby you have, anything you obsess over to hide from reality, right?
Right.
I would put them all in the same category and in the same level. Like I don't rank it on weed's worse than this. Like, I'd rather be doing Legos than smoking weed, like as a hobby and escape or whatever. I'm like, no, all of it's an escape.
But if you were looking at weed versus heroin, you would put those on different levels, right?
Yes, I would put heroin at a much different level, because heroin is. See, okay, when we're talking like hard drugs, that's different.
I figured. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, that is its own. Yeah, I don't approve of any of that stuff. But in the case of like you get lit with the bros, right? It's Friday night. You just got off work. You had a really long day. You're tired. You're sore. You have a headache. But you're like, I'm gonna go hang out with the boys. We're gonna pack a bowl. We're gonna have a good time and take a couple hits and just chill out on the couch and do nothing. That is the meaning of life right there. That is the ultimate best thing for any person in the world, in my opinion. That is the best feeling any person can experience, is when you're with someone you care about and you are able to fully, whatever that is, whatever that escape is for you, to be able to relax and be of one mind with these people for a couple hours.
Do you see any downside to that at all?
It gets, like you were saying, that can go too far to where, and I'll admit I was there for a while, where every week I'm looking forward to the day I go to Ochi's place and go there and get baked and lie on the floor of his apartment for like hours and do nothing. Where I was looking forward to that, to the point where I was neglecting everyday life stuff. I was neglecting other friends. I was going over to his house way more often. I was getting high way more often. I was using it as an escape instead of as a reward for getting through the week. You know, it's not, it's better to make it the carrot No, that's a really bad example. Actually, backing out of that, it should be a reward. This is something. So Alyssa and I, when we were together, we were very. Frankly, we were pretty much potheads. Like, we would smoke a lot, and no shade to her or anything for the record, but that was something that became an every night thing for us. Anytime, we would usually only be able to see each other on like weekends and stuff because I was working, I was busy all the time. She was working, she was busy all the time. But when we saw each other on the weekends, I never hung out with her because we were both high the whole time. Right. Like, I would go over there and I would smoke immediately, and then so as soon as it starts
the good thing about all that is that you guys had enough money for that. I mean, you weren't having any kind of financial problems. So thankfully that wasn't an issue.
Okay. I see what you're doing there. Yeah. Okay. We were smart about it. Okay. Yeah. There's cheap weed, but again, though, as soon as it starts, and this goes with anything, as soon as that starts to become an escape instead of a reward, what was supposed to be the reason we started doing that was because it was the end of our week. We had both worked super hard and we're like, I deserve this. I want to relax. I want to watch some TV with my girlfriend and be high and have a good time and just relax. But what it turned into was more of a vice than anything, where it's like, suddenly you can't function unless you're high, and you can't function, and you can't go through your day to day because you're trying to escape from those pressures because you're just trying to extend that weekend a little bit longer. Right. And honestly, that put me in one of the worst depressions I've ever been in. Was for probably a solid like 4 months. 4 or 5 months. I was high every day. I would go into work lit. I would be like, just like when I was home, I would let trash pile up around me. I was not cleaning my room. I was not cleaning myself up. I wouldn't shower for weeks. I was just, because I was so out of it all the time because I was using it to escape from reality. And I did. I succeeded. I escaped reality.
But you see that as a bad thing now.
Yes. So there's a distinct line to it. This is why, like, nowadays I'm like, I don't smoke a whole lot anymore just because my anxiety's been really bad recently. But when I do, it's once a week max. Probably once every couple weeks, if even, and it's only on weekends. It's only when I'm like, okay, room's clean, everything's set up. I don't have work tonight. I'm gonna be fine. Like, and I had a long week, and I'm gonna use this as my reward for what I just went through this week, which is usually complete bullcrap. Because I don't know. It's
yeah. So going back to, and this is gonna segue into our next topic, next segment, but because you said. I thought of this earlier, but you said that's the meaning of life. Yes. It's getting around. So when you said the meaning of life, I'm going to combine that statement with God right now, and then we're going to get into the spiritual discussion.
Oh, Lord.
Watch me.
Okay.
So that favorite episodes of The Simpsons that I always told you about. Yeah. So that episode I told you about, that's my favorite episode, where Homer decides to stop going to church because he misses one day and he has the best day ever. Well, throughout that episode, he has these dream sequences where he talks to God. And at the end of it, it shows him during the credits. He's up there and he's walking with God, and he says, "God, what's the meaning of life?" And God goes, "Homer, don't worry about that question. You'll know I'll tell you when you die." And Homer goes, "Oh, I can't wait that long." And God goes, "You can't wait 6 months?" And Homer goes, "No, tell me now."
Oh no!
So. Yeah. So now we'll get into the spiritual aspects of it. So
there's going to be a lot of stuff that I genuinely. One thing, just to clarify it, like, real quick, and you can keep this in, cut this out. That's your prerogative. But as someone who is formerly Christian, I hope nothing I say is taken as disrespectful to it, because I definitely still have a lot of love for what Christianity is supposed to be.
Right.
I hate the church system with a passion, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
We might agree on a lot of that.
But as far as seeing because when I look at someone who I know is like a genuine Christian, I use my other buddy from work as a good example. I talked to them both. I told them I was going to be on the podcast, and they both told me, they're like, "Don't use our names." So if that's why I keep saying my buddy from work.
That's fine.
But so the other guy, he has this light that I can see. Like, he just puts out this energy that you don't get from anyone else, and it's because he's Christian. And it's like, it boggles my mind, and I have so much respect for it because I'm like, I see this man go through so much every single night, and he never cusses. He never disrespects our boss, no matter how stupid he's being. He doesn't. He keeps to his own morals to a T. I've seen this man have to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, and well, I shouldn't say that, but like, the entire store, like he's carrying the entire store, and he was like, took it in stride. And I was like, how do you do that? I was like, I would have been punching bricks. Like, and so yeah, I have a huge amount of respect for. So
let's go with that then. First of all, is this guy about your age, or is he older than you? Okay,
yeah, he's a little bit younger.
A little bit younger. So when you see that, what is your true thought there? Do you think to yourself, this guy truly has something spiritual that I don't, or do you think this guy is very religious and he follows his religion so well? Like it just as a religion, and that's what makes him a good person? Or do you actually think there's something that you're literally seeing God in this person?
I would argue somewhere between the two, but leaning more towards it's something. I wouldn't, because again, I personally don't think God has any impact on our lives, but I do see a hope in him that whether or not it's religion, whether it's something real, whether it's something completely fabricated in his own head, it doesn't matter, because to him it's real.
Right.
And seeing that have such a deep impact on who he is, because it's like you hear people say, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm Catholic.
Right.
But it's in passing, right? They say that and it's just religion is its own, like, oh yeah, Sundays are religion days.
Right.
And then the rest of their life, they're just living a quote unquote normal person life. Like not necessarily raunchy, but they're just living a normal person life. Sure. They don't think about it.
Right.
But with this guy, with you, with like other people that we know, like I see this everyday drive to continue pursuing that joy and that hope. So so whether it's God or not is irrelevant. That's all I'm saying is I see something there that I don't have. I'm jealous that I don't have in some ways, but I respect it because I'm like, that is a commitment to something that really is about as close to otherworldly as we can get.
But are you jealous of like the happiness aspect of it and the joy aspect, like
of the peace? I would say
of the peace. But like, let's say that there is no God at all, and this person's belief is it's total phoniness. But they believe it so hard, they believe it's true, even though it's not. And that in and of itself is giving them peace, giving them joy, giving them happiness. If that's the scenario, are you still jealous of that, knowing that it's not real?
For me personally, I'm still jealous of the joy aspect of it, like the hope that I was talking about.
Right.
But I would never, like, if I knew beyond a shadow of doubt that God didn't exist, because I don't know that he doesn't exist, but if I knew that beyond a shadow of doubt, I wouldn't commit to that personally. But I would look at that person and I'd be like, you know what? They're going to die happy.
Right.
And that's okay. That's awesome. I mean, that's all we can ask for, is to die happy. Right. I think that's all we ever try to do in life. Everything we do in our life is working up to our death. Everything is temporary. Everything is honestly, life is just a series of stepping stones until we fall off a cliff. Right. Like,
what was Bill's now?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of.
Take one step, slip on a banana peel, and fall into a box.
Yeah, exactly. It's frankly fleeting. Life, it's not meaningless, but at the end of the day, it's such a short period of time. Like we only have, like 70 years more or less, right, to play with.
Right.
And even then, the first 18 of it is spent being a stupid kid who doesn't know what he's doing. I would argue the first 25 of it is spent being a stupid kid who doesn't know what he's doing. And then, so it's like, it's all so, I don't know where I was going with that thought.
Well, I would agree that if we're going on the premise that there is no God, there is no afterlife. When you die, that's just it.
Ignorance is bliss, I guess.
Right. You just cease to exist. If that was true, then I would completely hold to the philosophy of do whatever makes you happy. Be happy. Be happy in life. Whatever that, I mean, as long as you're not hurting other people to do so.
Exactly.
Make your own life happy. There is no sin. There is no evil. I mean, there's evil, but you know what I mean? Like there's nothing. There's no rules for you unless they involve hurting someone else, right?
Exactly.
So you do whatever's going to make your heart happy.
What you just described, I don't even need to be on the podcast because you just described everything I was going to say, basically.
What you just described as a hypothetical is pretty much exactly where I'm at on a mental level right now as far as treating that. I'm like, I don't care. If you want to be of any kind of religion, go for it. Right. However, that doesn't mean, and I don't want people thinking this, I don't believe in the everybody has their own truth and everyone has their own thing and it's all true. No, it's not. 2 + 2 is still 4. Donald Trump is still orange. These are all facts. Like this is a fact, right? Pineapple's not good on pizza, and we all know it.
Oh, now you stepped on some toes. Of all the things you said in this episode, that's going to be the most offensive.
But so at the end of the day, it doesn't like people can believe whatever they want. That is their right.
Sure.
They can believe in whatever they want to believe in.
Right.
And I have zero problem with that. But I have a problem when that religion tries to come into my life and try to tell me how to do it. Because I'm like, I'm respecting you in letting you do that. Respect me in letting me do my thing. Right? There's a mutual respect there. And I think that's why my friendship with said religious friend works out well, is because we have this mutual respect for each other. It's like, I don't get it, you don't get it, but it's okay. We can talk about it and still be chill.
Yeah, so that's totally valid. And that's something that a lot of people would say. And the way I've explained that kind of whole thing is like, and again, this is all based on a hypothetical, right? Because as I'm talking, it's like, hypothetically, if Christianity was true, like it was absolutely true, right? It doesn't matter what you believe about it, or what Bob believes about it, Frank, nobody, it is true. It is absolute truth. If that's true, then from the Christian perspective, when they're talking to a non-believer or they know a non-believer, that non-believer is walking towards a cliff that they don't know is there. And they're wearing a blindfold, right? So to that Christian, they're like, I gotta get him away from that cliff. And he goes up to him and says, dude, go this way because you're gonna. And what are you talking about? There's no cliff. Are you nuts? There's no cliff. No, there is a cliff. You can't see it, but there is a cliff, right? So I'm not saying I agree with the evangelistic.
I get what you're saying.
Because I'm not like that. You know me, I'm not like that. I tend to share my faith on a personal level with people that I get to know if they're interested. I'm not the guy sitting out on the street corner with a sign that says Jesus loves you, honk, and come talk to me. Tomorrow. Yeah, that's never been my style. I'm not knocking people that are called to do that. I think the Lord does use people in that way. Yeah. But that's not me. But I understand the perspective of somebody who fully believes in hell, fully believes that somebody without Christ is going to spend eternity there. That's a pretty big push. I mean, especially when you're talking about strangers, let alone people that you love and care about, family members, friends that are close. It's like, so I understand that drive and that push, even though I don't necessarily function that way.
Well, I mean, in your own words, you're not really called to do that. That's not the way you do it. You're calling, at the moment at least, seems, well, as a show, and this is your way of communicating with people and talking to them about religion and pursuing that. And I mean, you have your thing with Mark. That's where you're talking with him, learning Greek. You're pursuing it in that way. Right. So you're still being called to do things. It's just not the same way. And I totally, that makes perfect sense to me, because even if there is no God, even if all that, it has to do with everyone's psychology and worldview going into the religion, being like, okay, where it's almost like, in my opinion, like if you join a new church, right? It's kind of the first thing you do is you kind of be like, okay, if you're like me in a sense, if you're like me, sorry, it's like you start looking for, okay, where do I click in the system? Like what part of the clock can I be? Like, okay, they need someone to do, well, I mean, I can use your job at Calvary for a while, was doing the labels on the CDs, right? Yeah. And so you're like, okay, I can do this. This is something I'm capable of doing. And so I might as well. When I was drumming for the Harbor, I was like, this is something I'm capable of doing. I'm feeling more or less, I would argue, called to do it because it's a skill I have. If there's a need there, it just makes sense. Right. So in the case of you, like, I mean, and don't take this the wrong way, but you're not the most social guy. So I totally understand that why you wouldn't feel called to doing that kind of stuff. It makes perfect sense. Right. My issue with that, though, with the people who are going that far, is it's rare that they treat you with respect in that sense. Because, and again, this is probably a hot take, but I'm very sick and tired of people coming up to me thinking they're going to save me.
Right.
Because that immediately implies that there's something wrong with me. I know that. They don't need to know that. But I told people, I've told people this too. I have to tell people now I'm comfortable with going to hell just to get them off my back.
Mm-hmm.
I told, this is not true, by the way. I told someone who literally knocked on the door of my shed. So came into the backyard. Yeah, this is a whole story. So I live in a shed, by the way. This is not a joke or a bit, but it's a conversation for later. But so I had a Jehovah's Witness-esque guy come up to my door, and I was a weekend. It was a weekend, so I wasn't sober. I was like, I answered the door, and I told him, I was like, oh, sorry, I'm busy worshiping Satan. Can you get off my lawn? Like, go away.
What'd he do?
He looked also. I didn't say it like that, but I told him I was like, oh no, sorry, I actually worship Satan, and essentially said it like that. And he goes, okay, and he kind of like left. I was like, yeah.
I bet that's the first time he's ever had that response.
Yeah, I mean,
you threw him for a loop.
I mean, to me, it's a lot less consequential because it might as well be fiction. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you definitively it's fiction because I don't know. I don't think anybody will know.
Right.
I strongly believe that there is no one who is right. Christianity is wrong, and atheism is wrong, but also evolution is wrong. All Catholic, Protestant, doesn't matter. Every single religion is human fabrication.
Well, let's go back to the bare bones. Okay. Let's get away from religion.
Okay.
And let's just take two facts. So you got one finger over here, one finger over here, and this one says God exists. This one says God does not exist. Right? So both those statements cannot be true.
Yep.
Neither can both be false, right? One has to be true.
Exactly.
And one has to be false. They're exclusive, right? Mm-hmm. So when you talk about it's easy to get into religion and say, well, this religion teaches this. I disagree with that. This religion teaches the exact opposite. I do agree with that, or whatever. Some people cherry pick from different religions and just kind of create their own religious creation. So when we get just back to the bare bones of does God exist, where do you stand on that?
God exists.
You do believe God exists?
I do believe that. I mean, I could be wrong, but I do believe God exists.
Why?
Because creation, dude.
Okay.
You look at anything on this planet. I'm like, there is no way that at least some living being didn't make this. Like science is, our version of science is so primitive, bro, compared to like the fact that there have been enough like microorganisms to populate their own planet on a single, like, I don't know why I'm gesturing like this. There'd be like a million of them.
They can't see you anyway.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm doing the Italian hands thing, man. I'm over here, my hands are all over the place. Yeah. Like, but it just, this like microorganisms exist. And I'm like, it's so complicated on that tiny little speck alone. And there are billions of those trillions even of those tiny little specks existing all at once, coexisting. And that's just one species. That alone is already a complex enough thing to exist, having its own ecosystem on a microscopic scale.
Right.
All this to say, and then you scale it up and you're like, and then you look at something like a friggin' lion. Those are dope. Those are so cool. And like, you're like, someone had to make this, bro. Like it could not be. Evolution is just, it's a bunch of malarkey, bro. It doesn't
evolution
make any sense.
Doesn't answer the question of creation.
Evolution because frankly, evolution I consider a religion in and of itself now, because it is. People are so diehard about it, and you look at like Bill Nye and the debates and stuff, like he's so diehard about it, it might as well be its own religion.
But he's wearing a bow tie, which means he's right.
Oh my gosh.
So do you kind of fall more on the intelligent design area? Like, so when you say something intelligent must have created everything, could it have been an alien?
It's
could it have been invisible force that's like in one of my past episodes that I just did a couple weeks ago, she described it as a purple mist. That
purple specifically.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I love that because it's my favorite color. But so, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's intelligent design or there's random chance. It's kind of the two, and I'm sure there's little sidebars off of that too. But to me, that's the two main ideas of how we came to be. Then once you fall onto the intelligent design side, now the question becomes, who is this intelligent designer? Is he personable? Does he relate to us? Did he just set things in motion and walk away and say, all right, science experiment, see you later. I don't care. I'm out of here. Or is he interacting with us on a day-to-day? Does he want to have a relationship with us? Like, see, these are all a bunch of questions that blossom out of the idea that intelligence created us.
So, I mean, like I said, I do definitely believe in intelligent design. I do believe that a God exists. So
you would call it God?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, for lack of a better term, whether that's a primordial, is that the word? Whatever. Primordial. Thank you. Sorry, very tired. But primordial force that exists, or spiritual force that exists in the universe somewhere. It's something. I can't explain what it is because, again, I'm not a Christian that, well, supposedly has that relationship there. Right. I don't know this God. He's not my friend. If anything, he's actively my enemy most of the time and making my life miserable and getting in my way. I think God created, and I'm just going to keep using the term God, but like created us and the planet and all the universe and all the things that we are physically capable of seeing were created by God.
Right.
However, I do, and this is not a popular opinion at all, I don't think there was any love there. There was no love in the creation. Everyone has this idea of like, oh, Jesus loves me, this I know. I was like, really? Like, and then because people are able to take that simple concept of there being a God and skew it so far to, in certain religions, that means, okay, our God is telling us to bomb America. Our God is telling us to kill children and sacrifice them to the blood God. Like people take this idea of God and they're able to twist it so far without God himself intervening. And like, I'm like, how in the world is God able to sit there if he cared what we thought? Why does he not step in? But he doesn't, because he doesn't step in. He doesn't care about people. Again, this is just my opinion, but like I have very rarely seen any instance of God stepping in to prove to me that he exists in any way except negative. Because for me, I mean, not to rant about my own life, but like, I mean, I've been through hell the last year. I have, and it has been nonstop, one thing after the other, constantly hitting me. And every single time I would find myself going, God, please help me. I need out of this. I need something I need some sign that at least that in a few months it'll work out.
Right.
But I never got that. I didn't get that once. If anything, anytime I did pray, it would get worse. And it would get, and so I'm like, if there's a point to it, if we're believing in a grand plan or whatever, and which weirdly enough, that is something I do believe in, and I don't know why. That's just a core belief that I can't shake for some reason, is that there is a grand plan and everything has an ending, and there's a grand arcing scheme going on. But I feel like my part in this is being decided for me. Like it feels like even though I really want to be connected to Christianity and be part of this world as much as I want to, I fought for it. I prayed like years of this, and it feels now like God is actively trying to morph me into the bad guy, anti-hero character. Like it really does. It feels like I'm being given all these reasons to hate God and given all these things, even though I wouldn't have ever said that I hate God 4 years ago. Right. Like I never would have said that. I never would even thought that. Right. But here I am now saying that I actively have beef with God. I think he singled me out. If again, this is all assuming he exists. I feel like he singled me out to make a point, I guess. But I mean, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you. So, when you're going through hell, as you worded it, the last year, and you say God didn't answer you, God didn't help you, what are you basing that on? Why do you assume he didn't help you and he didn't answer you?
To me, so if I know that God, as a concept, like typically wouldn't just come down as like a holy voice being like, here's what I need you to do. It's like, no. Sure. Why do we always give God such a deep voice?
I don't know.
But like,
because he's massive and powerful, I guess we think he should.
Maybe isn't that?
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe
he's
like,
hey! Internalized misogyny, though. At the end of the day, isn't it? I mean, giving a man like a deep voice and like,
it is. Yes.
But
it's the patriarchy at work.
But I guess like, because anytime I've talked to someone about having their experiences with God, Jaden being like someone I talk to a lot about this, sure. And I don't like it sounds to me that it doesn't. It's not like God saying things. It's not necessarily like that. He speaks to people in a multitude of ways because he's God and creative and he has fun with it, I'm sure. Being like, I'm going to pop up in this toast today. Like, you ever see that? Yeah. The Jesus toast? Yeah. But
But get back to the question though, like, because
I'm kind of stalling.
I guess I'll just cut to the quick because I might, and correct me if I'm wrong, but usually when I get that response to the question of God, it basically boils down to God is not doing what I think he should be doing for me in my life. That's what I was going to say.
I knew that's where you were going with it. Sorry, I'm not going to lie. I lost my train of thought a little bit, but like I feel like it's if God were communicating with me, because I don't, like I said, if you were to tell me in some way that like, hey, it's going to be okay, just trust me for a couple of months or a year or however long, some way to confirm that in any way at all. I was sitting there.
What ways? Like, give me some ways that would work for you.
Anything. Anything that would make it clear to me.
So if you said, God, give me a sign that things are going to be okay, and then a book fell off your shelf.
Yeah.
Or the toilet flush in the bathroom and nobody was in there.
Yeah.
You take that as a sign.
So I would even go a step further. I would say something as simple as a friend, like reaching out to me when I wasn't expecting them to and being like, hey, just letting you know I was praying for you or something like that.
That's never happened.
Never once. And whenever, at least in a sense where I felt like it was connected to what was happening.
It would have to be in close proximity to you crying out to God.
I mean, yeah, I would assume so, because I mean, you're crying out to God in that moment, because what happens shortly after that is I say, fine, screw you. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna take care of this myself then, because no one around me is helping me. God, the universe isn't helping me. So I'm just going to pick myself up and do it myself. Right. Like, there's no point in sitting here begging for help from someone who's not going to listen. There's no point in that. And again, this is why I say I feel like I'm being shaped into the anti-hero here, or even just straight up the villain or the bad guy, because I want to believe this. I want to be part of Christianity. I want to sit here and be able to say, I believe without a shadow of a doubt that God is real and Jesus is real and all these things are real. But I can't do that when I've never once felt it or seen it or seen anything that could not be super easily explained away. Right. That, like, in the case of even... Because I had my experience with God. Yeah. I've told you about this, I think. But
Calvary, right?
Yeah. When I was like 15, I had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I feel God, right? Well, that worked out great, didn't it? Like, I still feel God every day, all the time. He's definitely still active in my life.
Well, are you supposed to, though? Because if you were to ask me, hey, Dad, do you feel God every day? No. Do you always feel that he's... Dude, I go through years sometimes where I feel like he is distant from me. That's not what it's about. That's not, there's nowhere in scripture that says you will feel close to God all the time, or that you won't go through dry spells or whatever.
No, see, that makes sense to me. But even in that moment, though, so we go back to when I was like 15, I had that moment. I mean, it was definitively placebo.
Right.
It had to have been, because there was no sign to me that it was God. I'm not a Christian. I'm not. That moment that I thought I was, I thought I'd finally gotten saved. I wasn't. All of this turned out to be not God.
Right.
Upon looking back on it, and whenever people say like, oh, but miracles happen, right? And I was like, yes, I do believe in miracles. I just don't think God does them. I think it's freaks of science, because that happens. Science is, we don't know everything about it. All it takes sometimes is for a single neuron to fire off in the brain to bring someone back to life and start their heart again.
Right, but let's stop there for just a quick sec, because someone else had brought that up, and they used, I don't remember which guest it was now, but they had used the term, when science does this or science did that, and I had to stop them and say, well, is science personified? Is science a being? Is science an intelligent creature? Because in order, so back to what you just said, what's causing a neuron to fire off? If there's no cause, then we're right back to the evolutionary model of everything came from nothing, and that there's no guidance, there's no direction, there's no intelligence behind any of it. It just spontaneously happened.
So, well, when you say what is science, I definitely wouldn't say it's a being or anything like that. I would say it's a set of rules.
Right. So how can it create?
So,
like, science is a creation. It's not a creator. You see what I'm saying?
So yeah, that's what I was saying.
So science doesn't cause neurons to function.
No. Well, yes, because we don't know everything about science. It's totally plausible to say that, hey, maybe this does happen all the time, and this one time it connected in just such a perfect way to where this dude suddenly goes from being dead to, oh my gosh, I'm back.
But who connected it is my question.
No, he might have been sleeping weird, and one of the nerves was... No, I'm serious.
No, I see what you're saying.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. I had to spit on my car battery to get here. Like,
you spit on it?
Yes, I spat on the thing, and the fact that it was a liquid touching it conducted it so I could start my car. Like,
what made you think to do that?
The guy yelling at me. The guy. I told you this. I thought I told you the story.
No.
Okay, so on the way here, total side tangent, but on the way here, I pulled off to get some gas, and when I turned off my car, I went inside, paid for the gas, whatever. I came back out and tried to start my car, it wouldn't start. So I'm sitting there going, and like, oh no, it wasn't even
turning over,
making the noise. So I was like, oh my gosh, I just got a brand new battery. Maybe I already messed something up. Like, I put it in myself, so I could have very easily messed something up. So I was like freaking out about that, and I opened it up, and then the mechanic guy who worked at the shop, the mobile oil bay, he goes, is it not starting? And I go, no. He goes, try spitting on it. So I was like, okay.
What in the world?
So I spat on it, and immediately the second it hit, the battery went psst, and then, so I thought I blew it up at first, and then the engine went and then died again. And I was looking at him, I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And he was like, try starting it. I was like, okay, random person. And so I hit the car and it started.
Dude.
It started flawlessly. Didn't even rev. Just on. Good to go. Complete. And did not turn off again the entire drive.
And this is a guy that worked there.
Yeah.
So I'm not automatic at all. Like automotive, I don't get into cars at all. I've never heard anything like that in my entire life. To spit on your battery. I've never heard
worked
that.
in an automotive bay for like a year. I still don't know what happened. It makes no sense to me.
That's crazy.
The only thing I can think is I was like, okay, the spit might be conductive because it's a liquid, right? And because I just spit on the post. So it might have just been something as simple as the post shifted and disconnected.
Right.
So it just connected the two metal, I guess, and was conductive. I don't know.
Or it could have been that the Lord wanted you sitting right here with me right now having this conversation. And he put power in your spit for that split second.
Dude, I should start selling bottles of it.
You should.
I'd be like,
as long as it would work for everyone else.
Fully spit.
Yeah. You'd be surprised, man. What was that girl that was selling her farts on eBay or whatever? And she was making all kinds of money.
Bro, a huge thing right now is like e-girls and stuff on the internet. They're selling their bathwater now.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that, which people of the internet, I don't know what level of degenerate you have to be to buy some random girl's bathwater.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're planning on doing with it.
Yes. I don't want to know what you're planning on doing.
Dude, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why is this a thing? Oh, I hate people.
Because people are weird,
much,
man.
bro. I hate
They're
it.
weird.
It's stupid. Why are people stupid?
Right.
Oh my gosh. I guess that's the whole point of this entire podcast is why are people stupid?
Well, it's not. That's
no.
Or else I would have called it that.
Sorry, my bad. You can cut that.
No, but so back to where we were. So you had said that this is a question I was going to ask you actually, and you kind of answered it for me already. But if Christianity was true, you want it to be true. You're fine with the whole message. You just don't know if you believe it's true.
Not the whole message. But
which part of the message are you not okay with?
Well, when we say the message, I'm talking about just within the Bible itself. There are some gross errors in the way.
Do tell.
In the way people have interpreted them.
Okay.
And again, this is coming from someone who has. I am by no means an expert. Like, obviously,
I'm not either.
But well, you're definitely more in tune with this kind of stuff than me. But so I look at a couple of examples. I brought up the Tower of Babel with you before.
Sure.
So when you read the story of Babel, what is that history to you?
Meaning, do I think it actually happened? Yes.
I can't. I can't. It
What?
makes so all-powerful God of the universe is suddenly frightened that people are going to build to heaven. This sounds Like the story of the Tower of Babel is so in line with the same type of dumb crap you would read like in Greek myths and Greek mythology, where it's like Icarus and the wings. Man built wings out of wax and feathers and just flew away. And Daedalus and the labyrinth and all that stuff. Sure. It's like, it's absurd stories that are there to explain why things are the way they are.
Like a parable.
Exactly. No, because a parable is a moral of a story. In the case of this, it's to explain why reality is the way it is, why there are different genders, why there are
different languages and
different languages and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's exactly what the Tower of Babel is to me. To me, it seems like, I mean, because at the end of the day, the Bible is just a collection of books that were found over hundreds of years.
Yes.
And within that, I do strongly believe that there are books and stories and stuff that shouldn't be in there. Like there shouldn't be. And this doesn't mean that they're necessarily false or not a piece of history. Right. But the Tower of Babel, that is ridiculous to me. It's a ridiculous story that even within God's own, the way he's presented in his own story, that's out of character for him. It seems very man-made and very man-written.
Well, first of all, I think you're already off when you say God was frightened. I don't think it says that.
Okay, I should clarify. I mean more so like the fact that he felt the need, because I mean, heaven isn't, you can't get to heaven by building straight up. We know this now. We've been to space, and
he knew that too.
Yeah. So like, why? What's the point? Let them do the thing. Let them build their tower and fail. Because, I mean, they're not going to be able to build that tall. Sure. They're going to get up there, and then they're going to realize, wait, we were idiots for doing this.
And their wings are going to melt, and they're going to fall down.
Exactly. Let their wings melt.
But is it a possibility that God knows exactly why he did what he did, and we don't?
That's fair. Right. No, and but again, that feels like a bit of a cop-out.
But it's my point I'm making is it's not in and of itself a reason to not believe it's true just because you don't like it or because it doesn't make sense to you.
How about this? It's one of those ones where I read it and it the level, because I believe that a lot of the Old Testament did happen, but the level of absurdity that comes with this Tower of Babel specifically is just, I mean, it's absurd. I mean, you're telling me that the reason there are races and ethnicities and any of this exists is because like a bunch of people were stupid and decided to try to build a tower to heaven. And God was like, nope, all you guys, you're an Asian now. You're Canadian. Well,
that's not quite how it happened.
Well, no.
But I mean, it was the scattering. It's when they scattered across the earth.
Okay, so I have a question about that too, because I've been told by some certain Sunday school teachers that I was told by some of them that it was them, God cast everyone immediately, and everyone just went whoosh. Okay, I'm in China now, I guess, and I'm Asian.
I don't think the text says that. I think it's so the way that I'm reading it and the way it seems. I mean, because first of all, it doesn't say that, like what you just said. It doesn't say that. It says that he confused their languages.
Yeah.
Because at one point they were all able to communicate. So let's say, just as a working model, let's say there's 100 people in a room and they all speak English, and then you split them into groups of 5. So now you have 20 different groups that all speak one language each. So those 5 people, each group of 5, can only communicate with each other.
Yeah.
So then they're going to have children that can only speak that language.
Yeah.
And as they do that, they're going to segregate. They're going to go their own ways. They're going to start their own communities with their own languages and all that kind of stuff.
That makes sense to me.
Right.
Here's what doesn't make sense to me. I'm one of the people in the Tower of Babel. I'm there with, let's say I'm there with like a brother or something, or a good friend of mine. We're working there together, and then suddenly we're speaking different languages.
Right.
And we get all upset with each other. And we're like, I can't understand you. You're talking ridiculous.
Right.
I'm not going to leave. I don't care who. I'm not just going to leave the project I'm working on. I'm not going to just immediately disband everything. I'm not going to walk away from my friend, even though now I don't understand him because God just switched our. Which again, how the heck did that work? All these people suddenly forget how to speak their native tongue and instead start speaking a different language.
Right.
Which, what?
Yeah, but as I'm not saying I think it happened immediately either. Maybe you and your friend or your brother, whoever, maybe you're trying to communicate to him. What just happened?
And he's hearing you going, and you're going, what in the world? And you say, what in the world? And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, and I mean, over time, you're going to seek out the people that can understand you and that you can understand them.
No, see, that makes sense. But again, it makes sense within the realm of the story.
Right.
This does not by any means seem to line up with anything else in history. So all of this, the whole reason I pick on this story specifically, because I have so many other things too, like the Book of Job was fiction in my head, Jonah, fiction. What else?
But what's your criteria? Like when you make those statements.
So the style of writing, the person who wrote it, the time period it was discovered in, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know, but just pick one of those people you just said.
Okay, so you do the Book of Job. Okay. So this is a story of God. First of all, never gives any context as to who Job is, at what point in time it takes place. Usually, like typically in biblical or in the Bible, it's easier to tell what order stuff happened, because it'll say in the beginning, be like, this is written by such and such, and this is what happened here. This is everyone's parents and grandparents, and here's how it all connects.
But if it doesn't say that, does that mean the story's not true?
No.
Okay.
No, that's not just the only criteria I know about at all. But that is a big factor of it. So Job doesn't have that. In fact, it gives almost zero context, and it sounds. Definitely so I mean, there's a lot of poetry in it. It's a book of poetry, but Job reads like exactly that, like a series of poems that were written. Do we know who wrote the Book of Job? Has this ever been confirmed? Because
no, I don't believe so.
So that's another thing too. We don't know the author. So to me, it seems very plausible that the Book of Job was a parable, that it was something that a story that was told and passed down to be like, look, here's why we have faith in God. We always keep our faith in God. That's the moral of the story, right? I was talking about that earlier. Is call back to like the first hour, which feels like years ago. But like Job is just, it really just reads like a parable. And I don't. And that's out of character for God too, to be like, yes, Satan, have fun with this one human. Like,
no, it's not.
Really?
Not at all.
Well, I mean, so I understand that Earth is Satan's domain, right? Sure. So is the whole point. So I guess that makes sense.
Well, even in the New Testament, you see that we're tested like that, where, it talks about how the devil roams the earth like a roaring lion. He says he studies us to see what our weaknesses are. I mean, obviously, God's all powerful. He could step in at any point and just kill Satan and get us out of there, right?
But yeah,
so there must be a reason why he's letting us go through those trials and those kinds of things. But back to Job, what if, let's say I'm sitting here and some guy named Bob is over here, and Bob says the Book of Job is a parable. It's not a historical narrative. It didn't actually happen. It's just a fictional story told to make a point or to teach something, right? And I'm over here sitting here saying, no, I believe the Book of Job is literal. I think Job was a real man that existed. I really do think he lost all those things, and I think God did let Satan test him, and all that stuff really happened, right? How important is it to the story of everything in the Bible which one of us is right in that scenario?
Sorry, what?
You
lost me a little bit.
In other words,
that was really simple, I'm sure. But
in other words, I could say I don't believe it's a parable, but if it was, let's say I'm wrong. I'm wrong. It actually is a parable. Job never really existed. None of that stuff actually happened to a man named Job. It was all just written in the Bible to teach us a lesson about trusting God through struggles and trials and hard times. Okay. That would not affect my faith in any way, shape, or form. That would not be a destroyer for me.
So the reason it is a big deal to me in any regard, well, first off, let's just assume that this was the only thing I had, because again, I'd already mentioned Jonah, Tower of Babel, there's a couple other ones like within the Old Testament and New Testament. But we'll just stick with the Book of Job for now. And it's not inherently it doesn't just shoot the whole religion in the foot. It doesn't make it invalid immediately. But what it does is it reminds me that at the end of the day, it's just, again, spicy opinion, I'm going to get canceled for saying this, but guys, believe it or not, the Bible is a book. It is just a book.
Yeah. That's what the word Bible means.
It's held in such reverence that people really, they forget that that it had a beginning. The Bible didn't just exist through all time.
No.
It's old, but it didn't exist through all of time. It's at some point correct me if I'm wrong in this, but there was a group of religious officials who sat down and over the course of like a couple years, I think they amassed what was a collection of hundreds of books, right? And then through prayer, through studying, through all of this stuff, they narrowed it down to what they believed to be what should be in
what was inspired and what was not. Yeah,
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would argue that it's totally valid to say that there were probably stuff left out that God wanted to include, and there have probably been stuff that was put in there that wasn't supposed to be, i.e. the book of Job and the book of Jonah, which is also just a parable.
But why would, if let's say those are parables, why should they not be included? Because they're parables.
They at least well, no, I guess they could be included, but I think the fact that everyone takes the Bible as purely historical text, which it's not. But you talk to your average everyday Christian who doesn't actively study it to the length you do, or the people you hang out with, like Mark and all them, like who don't like actively study the Bible, but are still a Christian. They'll say the Bible is true. Everything in the Bible is true. Everything in the Bible happened, etc. Okay?
Right.
That's
not everything in the Bible happened, because I think there is allegory. I think there is parables. Jesus was very specific when he taught a parable. So I don't read that and say, oh, that actually happened.
So that's something I think people need to keep in mind always when reading the Bible. Is it is just a book. Not just a book, sorry. It is a book. Something that was written by a person who, even within the book of James, I believe. No, not James. John. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Yeah. You see that it was written by a dude because he was like, the one who Jesus loved most got there first. Right? Like little stuff like that. You see, it's like
that's their personality comes through the writing.
This is something that was written by a person.
Right.
So what that means to me is when I see in the New Testament where Paul writes these letters to the church, he's not writing a book of the Bible. He's not sitting down there writing this thinking, this is going to be something that everyone reads for the rest of time.
I agree 100%.
So what he's doing is he's writing to a specific church about specific problems that church has. And the problem is now people have taken that as, okay, since this is in the Bible now, we have to follow all these things to a T. No, that's not what it says. It's not like, in my opinion, again, here, you can totally correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the New Testament should not be considered put on the same level as the Ten Commandments. It shouldn't be, because everyone does that. They're like, everything said in the New Testament, everything Paul said, everything Jesus said, all these things. Jesus, obviously, it's Jesus. I understand why people follow that, Son of God. Assuming that's who he was, it makes sense. But as far as Paul's teaching, I'm like, he was just a dude. And before he was a Christian, he was a murderer.
Right.
I mean, of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, everyone seems to forget that.
I don't.
Yeah, well, it's never
makes it even more amazing to me.
It's never talked about, though. I mean, like, and I'm not saying that people aren't capable of change, and I'm not saying that at all. I'm sure Paul was a great dude when he became Paul instead of Saul. Like,
right.
But you can only take his teaching, his letter, as letters to those church, as pieces. Those are pieces of history, not a life lesson, not something that you should take. You shouldn't be I feel like people shouldn't be basing their entire personality or their life or their religion off of his teachings.
Right.
And I say his because they're not Jesus' teachings, in my opinion. They're his. They're his writings to the church to help them continue to run what the system they had established. He was like, because Paul and the early church, they had their established thing where they're like, this is what we do as Christians. This is established. We don't rape people. We don't molest children. We don't do any of these things. We stick to these basic set of life rules of being a decent person. Okay. And we believe in Jesus. Like, that's basically all it boiled down to at the time. And then those churches that they had established weren't doing that. So he wrote letters to them, be like, hey, this is bad. Stop doing it. Stop molesting children. Stop raping people. People listening, stop molesting children and stop raping people. It's bad if you didn't know.
Yeah, but so Yeah, there was a lot of stuff to
Sorry, I went a little off the rails. I'm not going to lie.
No, you're fine. There's a bunch of things to address. So,
gosh, I'm sweating, bro.
You're right that. So the Bible was penned by men, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess here's what I'll say, is that there's only two options as far as I can tell. Either man decided one day we're going to write the Bible. We're going to write, or like you said, Paul's writing letters to specific churches. Moses is writing specific books to the Jewish people, whatever the case may be. And they all did it totally unguided by God in any way. They all did it for whatever the reasons were. Maybe they wanted to have some kind of control in the church. Maybe they were tired of people raping and molesting children, like you said, and then they wanted that to stop. Or it was divinely inspired by God, and he put the whole thing together for a specific purpose. And he used these men to pen his words, right? And their personalities did come through in it, like John saying the disciple who Jesus loved, and Mark saying that the man ran naked from the tent or whatever. Yeah. Those kinds of things, of course, that's there. And when I look at the way that the scriptures were written, and you think over the span, you mentioned this a minute ago, the span of time that the Bible was written, like you look at thousands of years or however, 40 plus different people from all different walks of life, all these different things, writing at different times. They're not all sitting in the same room together writing. And you've heard this analogy before, because I've told you since you were little. But if you were to go around your own town, and this is all in one place, let's say your workplace, all these people already know each other, and you told them all to sit in the same room, grab a piece of paper and say, I want you to write one page on who God is and what he wants for us. And then you somehow try to fit all those pages together into a coherent thought that matches up and lines up with each other. No way. No. You're going to have contradictions all over the place, right? And that's so it's amazing to think that the scriptures came together the way they did with no contradictions.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's not necessarily not divinely inspired. It's like you said it as two options when there's a third, and I believe in the third being it's a hybrid. There is aspects of it that were divinely inspired. I'm sure that some of Paul's teachings, some of the letters he sent were divinely inspired. I think that the Gospels were divinely inspired. They are a almost word for word perfect retelling from 4 different authors over the course of several years.
Yes, but if God was going to divinely inspire writings, and then he was going to do all that, and then he was going to step away and allow men to somehow get stuff in there that wasn't supposed to be in there and take stuff out that was supposed to be in there, that would kind of defeat the whole purpose, wouldn't it?
I agree.
Why would he only intervene halfway? Do you see what I'm saying?
This is the part where I'm going to get a little bit of weird territory. I think territory.
It's good emphasis.
I think that you just nailed it right on the head with what you just said.
Of course I did.
You want a good clickbaity episode title, here it is for you.
Yeah.
The Bible was a failed experiment, in my opinion.
How so?
Because it was supposed to be divinely inspired. It was supposed to be that, and when God went to Moses and was like, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you write this stuff down for me? Could you write Genesis and Exodus and all this stuff and tell this story and have it all written out for me for later? Don't worry about it. We'll talk about it in a couple thousand years. That kind of commission he made, right?
Right.
That was the plan, in my opinion. I feel like that's where God was going with it. But again, as soon as you've said this a lot, actually, the church would be perfect if there were no people in it. As soon as you take humans, which are inherently flawed creatures, and that's being generous, it doesn't matter if God's involved or not. We're going to find a way to screw it up. Sure. So it's pretty believable for me to think that there's got to be some cracks in this book.
Yeah, but a
lot of cracks in this book.
If he is orchestrating it, do you think he's going to allow for that? Because he can stop people from making those cracks, right?
Of course he can.
If he's all powerful.
I think he's capable of that, sure. But I would argue that for whatever reason he didn't. Because I see stuff like...
See, I have a hard time with the middle ground theory. I would rather say he either had nothing to do with it
or everything to do with
it, because it doesn't make sense to me to think that he would get it halfway there and then say, okay guys, do with what you want with it now. I'm going to let you put stuff in that's not supposed to be there and take stuff out that's supposed to be there. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Which is fair, but I mean, I think and that does that's a very fair view on that. I just think it doesn't make sense to me that
that it can be a flawless collection when it's over the course of thousands of years that this thing was put together.
That's what it would sound like, and you would
over
think.
The course, and again, like.
But when you look for the flaws, that's when you get your mind blown. Like actual flaws, not flaws like that doesn't make sense to me. That's not a flaw, right?
No.
A flaw would be like, hey, this scripture says Jesus is the only way of salvation, and this one says Billy Bob's the only way of salvation. Wait a minute,
and
that's a contradiction.
And just to save my pride a little bit here and clarify something, I'm totally open to being completely wrong on this entire subject.
Me too.
And this is something like this is just where I'm at now and my current thoughts on it.
Right.
And I mean where I'm at in life now, it's not something I think about every day. So honestly, I'm glad we're having this conversation because I'm definitely going to be doing some research after this.
This is great, man. And let's end with this. I'm going to end with this because we're at about time.
Okay.
So you said something earlier about, and this is where I was going a little while ago, where you said that if it was all true, you'd want it to be true. So I'll end with this by saying, if that's really true, that's the one thing I can not the one thing, but one of the things I can definitively say to you is that if that is a true statement from your heart, that you really want to know if it's true, and you want to know if God is real, and you want to know if this God is the God of the Bible, is the God of Christianity, you will find that out. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
That's the part that this is the part. No, you're 100.
At some point.
I fully believe you, but at the same time, I 100% don't, because I'm in love with that concept of, okay, well, then just one day I will find it because I'm still looking, right?
Yeah.
But
never stop.
I've been looking for 20 years.
Never stop, never stopping.
And that's the part. I'm like, how long am I supposed to do this? How long am I supposed to continually be unhappy in this search?
As long as it takes, man.
Then it's not worth it to me. It's not because at this point I'm like, I don't want heaven. I don't want hell. I'm like, I just want to die. Like, that's all it boils down to, bro. Yeah, I would be happy if death was just a really long nap.
Right.
I would be okay with sleeping forever and just being in that weird dream space. I would be fine with that.
Right.
So, but
if it's not.
But exactly, and this is the part
that's the big if.
Well, I mean, and this is the part that leads into religious trauma for me, is where I have to deal with that existential thought all the time of, dang it, that's right, I'm going to hell. That thought pops into my head all the time, where I'm just like, well, that sucks, but I guess I go to hell now because I tried talking to God about it. I tried being a Christian. I tried pursuing this with all of my, when I say that, I'm not joking. There is no part of me that doesn't want this, because I do, but it seems so, the door is closed already for me. That's how it feels. And it feels like if God's doing any molding and shaping of me in any way, like I said, it's to be the bad guy right now for whatever reason that is. And if he does have a reason for doing that, cool. Whether that's to teach me something or to teach other people something, if I'm being, because that's kind of what it feels like, honestly. It feels like I'm being used almost as like a way to push people more towards Christianity, because they see the way my life is going.
Right.
And
I guess I don't want to be like that guy.
And see, and this is why, honestly, honest to God, I think God is kind of sick in some ways, in the stuff he lets happen, and the stuff that the way I because any way I do see him in any given thing is usually negative. Right. And maybe that's just because I'm a pessimist.
Well, here's why, and this is a very popular viewpoint. You're not alone in this at all. Usually, what it boils down to, and the number one issue that people bring up to me when I say, "Why don't you believe in God?" And I know that's not you. You said you do believe in God. You're just struggling with who He is and all that stuff. But the number one reason people say I don't believe in God is because of suffering in the world. Number one. And to me, I can empathize with that. I get it. I understand that. I look at the suffering in the world, my heart breaks, I'm sad, all this other stuff too, right? But the reality of that is the suffering in the world does not prove to you that God doesn't exist.
No.
What it proves is God may not be who you think He is.
Exactly.
The God that you're envisioning in your mind might not be who really God is, because ultimately what it comes down to is I have this picture of God who I think He is, what I think He should be doing in my life, and He's not doing that. And then the conclusion a lot of people come to is they say, well, therefore, since he's not doing what I think he should be, he must not exist. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's like a kid saying, I don't think my parents exist because I really, really want to eat candy 3 meals a day, and they're giving me Brussels sprouts. Therefore, my parents don't exist. No, it's just that your parents aren't doing what you want them to, right? Because your parents are looking out for your best interest, even though to the kid, they don't understand that at all.
No, and that exact, actually, so you could, all the crap that I've said this whole time kind of boils down to that exact thought process. It just is that, but me, like I fully believe that, well, I can't say fully, I skeptically believe that God is actively working on this grand plan, like I talked about earlier, and that all the suffering in the world, everything will come to a head, and it will make sense. I do believe that. Whether or not I want to believe that, that's part of my core being at this point, and it's something I can't really shake. But all that means to me right now is that my place in God's plan is to be not a Christian right now, to be going down whatever path I'm going right now.
I would agree,
because that's part of it. And if that means that I'm going to go through another year of hell, then I guess let's do it. Bring it on. Like I did it once, I can do it again. But I don't want to. But please no. But at the same time, if that's part of the plan, it's part of the plan.
If that's what it takes.
Exactly. And that's kind of where I'm at today. Like, you talked to me a month ago, I would have said screw God, screw everything, I hate everyone, I want to die. But I'm a little bit better now. So
just a little bit.
And I don't know. I think there's a level of bitterness there. And there always will be. I have no, it doesn't matter if I become a Christian or not. And this is something I'll just say straight up. I have no plan of ever being friends with God, because I don't want to, frankly, because I'm like, this is, at this moment in time, I do blame him for a lot. There's a lot of things wrong with me that make it almost impossible for me to function. Anxiety, depression, all this stuff that really actively messes with me on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, this is all not, I didn't pick this. Like, I didn't say, yes, I want to be a depressed emo kid. Like, no. Why am I having to deal with this when it's not something I ever chose, when I never wanted this, but it's become so much a core part of who I am that there's a lot of bitterness there. But at the same time, I'm fully understanding of who God is. This is not a genie in a bottle, despite what people at certain churches may think. He's not just oh, God, give me a Lamborghini. Oh, I didn't get a Lamborghini. God's not real. No, no, it's a divine being who understands all. And knows all in the universe. And I'm like, it doesn't matter how much pain I go through. At any point, God is still he exists. He's still doing his thing. And it I don't know. I don't know.
Because you could find somebody as bad as you feel your life gets. You can always find somebody who has it twice as bad as you, 3 times as bad as you. And some of those people you can find will say crazy things like, I'm glad I'm going through this because now I know the Lord better. And you look at those people and you think, are you insane? Have you lost your mind? And it could be. It could be that they lost their mind, or it really could be that they now have a relationship with the Lord that they never dreamed in a million years they would ever have when they're going through things like what you're going through. Because your first thought is, God must hate my guts. But then years down the line, you realize, no, he loves me, and that's why I went through that. And that's such a different place to be in, and it almost seems foreign and incomprehensible to be in that place.
You know what? If I ever hit that point, you'll be the first to know about it.
I hope so. Then we'll do another episode and you come on and tell us all about it.
That's what this episode I feel like is more of a snapshot of who I am right now. I'm honestly probably, besides editing it, I'm really not going to listen to this one just because I don't want to, because I don't want to hear my own voice for 3 hours. But
hey man, I got to listen to my voice all the time. What are you talking about?
Dude.
Thankfully today I have a different voice because I was getting over being sick. So
man's got the Rona, bro.
I don't think that's it, but
yeah.
All right, cool, man. This was awesome.
That was awesome.
This was better than I thought it was going to be, actually.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in this week. Please spread the word about this podcast to those that you know. I'm always looking for feedback, so please contact me at whycan'twetalkaboutThat@proton.me. If you would like to join the Why Can't We Talk About That podcast Facebook group, just search for it and ask to join. Also, during this episode, I was trying to think of a type of music and couldn't think of what it was. I now remember that it's dubstep. Also, Aidan wanted me to let everyone know that he realizes now that he described hyperpop wrong. Now here's a clip from next week.
Then they go, well, how do we can reach the masses? Social media, music, all this stuff.
Yeah.
What do they listen to? What do they really, TikTok, whatever it is.
Right.
And like, people use their platforms, TikTok, to send messages about this and that. What's a conspiracy theory, or it's about the president, or it's about the government. All these little snippets, using whatever they can to get the message out.
Right.
So people that are trying to do for the greater good, some people don't have great intentions, in my opinion, in my belief, not just opinion, my beliefs.
Right.
Don't have great intentions, don't have pure intentions. So you got to figure out, what's the intention behind it? Just like music, what's the intention behind the words? What are they trying to convey about themselves? What are they trying to convey to you? What are they trying to express to you, to convince you?
The influence, yeah, for sure.
Influence you. Well, what is in politics? What is your local leaders trying to influence you? What is their ideas? Why are they all in agreement? Why is that one person dissenting holding out?